Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Season 2 of the Next Gen Racing Proto GT3 Championship, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today, we kick off an all-new season of the championship that is backed by popular demand. It is the Prototype GT3 Multi-Class Championship, which you all came to know and love in 2021 into 2022, but it is back better than ever as our drivers get ready to go racing for another 10-round season. And as we'll come onto the season shortly, we are here today in Japan at the Fuji Speedway, and as our drivers get set to go here at the no chicane layout of the circuit, it is definitely going to be a thriller and one not to miss, and indeed a circuit which will definitely put to the test and task immediately our drivers in proving they've got the pace to be the best in their respective classes. We're a grand total of 3 car classes out on circuit with 2 different types of prototype and also the GT3s, and with 6 driver classes available It is going to be tense, it's going to be tight, and it is going to be incredibly busy out on circuit. Indeed, you can imagine we're a grand total of 46 drivers signed up for this series, and currently approximately 40 in attendance tonight. It is going to be a circuit that is cramped despite its 4.46 kilometre length, but that's what it's all about in multi-class, of course. It's about battling with your rivals in class, but also navigating around the traffic, or letting the traffic navigate around you. But as we get ready to navigate our way into the opening qualifying session of the season, let's take you through your schedule. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. Our schedule tonight is as follows. In just under 14 minutes time, we'll be heading into our opening qualifying session of the season. 25 minutes in nature and length. It will kick off at 8 o'clock, and we'll see our classes go out there in two groups, and we'll come to the specifics around that shortly. And then straight after that, we'll be forming up the grid for our sprint race. The first of two races in our schedule for today. It'll be a 20-minute sprint race kicking off at approximately 8:25. Then we'll take a brief breather after the checkered flag falls before returning at approximately 9 o'clock for the feature race, our second race of the day and our final race of the day. And that'll be a 60-minute feature with an all-important pit stop thrown into the mix. More details on that coming up shortly as well. And we'll get to see there who's going to be the master of strategy. Indeed, strategy could be key here to achieving a good number of overtakes. But taking you through a little bit of housekeeping, of course, in the commentary booth you have myself. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul, TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And in terms of where you can tune into this broadcast live this evening, with all the racing action, of course, being live, you can tune in via 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com and search for Next Gen Racing and tune in there. Secondly, if you're more of a Facebook user, like Katie Eames is in the chat there, we can see in the Facebook chat, good evening to you, Katie. You can always go to facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing and tune in on Facebook. Or last but not least, if you're more of a Twitch user, you can always go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in on that estate. But of course, we can see all three chats, so do not be shy. Feel free to say hi. Let us know how you're doing and who you're cheering on going into today. But speaking of today, then, let's take you through our calendar as it stands. And well, what an absolutely packed calendar we have over the course of the next couple of months. It all kicks off today on the 18th of January 2023 in Japan at the Fuji Speedway circuit. And it's going to be a combination of sprint and feature round today. And you can see there, looking on the centre right hand side of the column tower, you can see just the fact that we do have two types of race evenings, the majority being sprints and features, but we also have our endurance rounds, or our super endurance rounds, which are 2-hour races that we've thrown into the mix there accordingly every third or fourth round. But we get ahead of ourselves. Today it's Fuji. Next time out will be the Hockenheim Ring in Baden-Württemberg. And then we'll have another sprint and feature race on the 25th of January. And then we'll make our way over to the United Kingdom, really travelling the European continent for a brief while for the 1st of February at Silverstone for another sprint and feature. And then we have our first super endurance round at Road America on the 8th of February, where we make our way stateside. And we'll out one of the traditional American classic circuits. There we're going to see our drivers take on the circuit for 2 hours of extreme racing action. Then we'll make our way back to Europe for the Belgian circuit of Spa-Francorchamps in a sprint and feature round. And that wrap up the first half of the season. But our drivers do not get a break. We'll continue the story. It'll be weekly races all the way through on Wednesdays. And in round number 6, we'll make our way to Indianapolis, back to the States, in the state of Indiana for the sprint and feature there, before returning back to the European continent for Le Mans in France on the 1st of March. And that'll be an endurance round, of course, a classic circuit for an endurance round. Indeed, if you've been a long-time follower of the Next Gen Racing GT3 and Proto GT3 series, you'll recall that most of the time when we do have a super endurance round, it normally takes place at Le Mans because it is such a brilliant circuit for extended races. And then round number 8, we make our way briefly to Italy for the Monza Grand Prix circuit and a sprint and feature on the 8th of March. Then the penultimate round on the 15th of March, we make our way back to France to the recently introduced iRacing circuit of Magny-Cours, and that will be our penultimate round, our final sprint and feature round. And then we bring it all to a close on the 22nd of March 2023 at the Daytona Road Course in our final endurance round of the season. So it's an absolutely brilliant roster of circuits here, and a little bit for everyone when it's drivers concerned, given the fact that today's circuit is a series of contrasts with an extremely long start-finish straight and also a highly technical set of corners. And well, we're getting into the position to introduce Fuji, so why don't we, as we see here, the Fuji Speedway no chicane variant circuit map displayed on screen. And this circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com. Thank you to them as always for their brilliant circuit maps. But this circuit located in Oyama in the Sunto district, I should say, of the Shizuoka prefecture of Japan, is a circuit that lies at the base of Mount Fuji. Now, named after the mountain that it's located near, this circuit circuit is venerable in terms of its history because, of course, it is the venue where we saw the closure of the now brought to infamy Rush movie, of course, the battle between Niki Lauda and James Hunt in what was the 1976 Formula One Championship, if my years serve me correctly. But it was a circuit and a day which was absolutely deluged with rain, albeit we're not going to be seeing any rain here today, but with it being one of the first live televised major motorsporting events, and indeed I believe it was the first major F1 event televised live on air. Well, it's not quite Formula One today, but you can imagine there that has given the Fuji Speedway circuit an accolade that it's never quite been able to shake off, because many come to the circuit year after year wanting to see the brilliant circuit, whether it be its long straight, the local scenery, or the tight twists and turns. And these days this circuit is playing host to what is their GT World Challenge Asia and also the Super GT Series, the major Japanese series. Indeed, it is a circuit that's had plenty of drama over the years, and could we see some drama today? Once our drivers make their way down the start-finish straight, just shy of a mile, 0.911 miles in length, they'll make their way into the heavy braking zone for turn number 1, coming down the gearbox all the way to first or second gear from top gear, and as they make their way out the turn 1 hairpin, they'll come through the kink of 2 flat out before heading into Coca-Cola corner. In the prototype machines, it's going to be a very fast left-hander at turn number 3, where there might be a little bit of braking, alternatively a lift off the throttle and carry the speed, but as they make their way through the left-hander and then down into 100R, known as turns 4 and 5, given the fact it's a double apex corner. As our drivers come through the long right-hander, they'll clear the turn 4 apex flat out on entry, but then as they get beyond the turn 4 apex, they'll have to lift off the throttle and start to tighten the nose into the apex to turn number 5 if they want to get back on the throttle and head up towards the turn 6 hairpin. Breaking into the hairpin, one of our low-speed corners, a deceptively low-speed corner, as our drivers make their way onto the brakes downhill, and as they exit out of turn 6, they'll come through the exit kink of 7 before making their way through 300R of turns 8 and 9 and into the braking zone for Dunlop corner at turn number 10. Their medium-speed corner, with there being no chicane, of course, we'd normally on the full-out see that as a hairpin the Dunlop corner, and our drivers would loop back on the chicane, but instead they carry the speed all the way through the right-hander and up towards turn number 11, and this is where the circuit goes from its lowest point and starts to elevate dramatically up towards its highest point at the Panasonic corner. But to do so, they have to make the way for a very technical last section of the circuit through turns 11, 12 and 13. The next complex there, where our drivers will really have to balance the throttle and the brakes, but the circuit opens up as well to offer plenty of overtaking opportunities, and as they exit our next bend, which is a completely blind apex left-hander, turn 13, they'll then make the way up through the right-hander into Panasonic corner, the long right-hander that never seems to arrive, and then it suddenly hits you right in the face on your right-hand side as you brake into turn 14. And it's a critical corner, of course, because you want the exit out of the corner to run down the start-finish straight and do it all again. And that's why this is a circuit of serious contrast in the fact you have a deceptively long start-finish straight, and then you have a lot of medium-speed corners for the first half of the lap, and then the low average speed of the rest of the lap really comes and hits you hard on the brakes, and indeed your cornering and tyre wear does come up premium as a result. But speaking of results, of course, our drivers will look to score results today, subject to a number of race rules, and let's take you through our rules, our generalised rules. Of course, we're not going to go into every single little bit of detail. Of course, the rule book has been available to our drivers, but in terms of setup, this is a fixed setup series with setups provided ahead of each round, and that is across all of our classes, whether it be in the prototype cars, alternatively the GT3s. Our drivers will be given a setup to go into each round, provided by NXTGEN Racing. Driver classes wise, driver classes have been based on pre-season evaluation sessions. Those sessions have been running for the last couple of weeks and shall be finalised by round number 3. Of course, the evaluation aims to get everybody in the right class, but if we do have 1 or 2 drivers who are not in the correct class, then we will try and bring them together and make sure that any inaccuracies are corrected as soon as possible. Now, as for qualifying, an open qualifying format shall be used as split into 2 equal halves over the 25 minutes. The first 12 minutes of the qualifying session shall be dedicated to the GT3 class. We'll see our lowest speed class, lowest average speed class, go out there and set their laps in the opening 12 minutes, and that'll be the gold, the silver and the bronze GT3 drivers all together, and then we'll have them come into the pits at 12 minutes, subject to them completing their final lap, and then we'll see our proto classes make their way out into circuit. And as you can see there are 2 prototype classes, and they are the LMDh, known as the BMW V8M Hybrid, recently introduced to iRacing and making its debut in the official LMDh GTP series later this year. In real life, an absolutely roaring car with 640 horsepower, which we'll see very shortly. And also we have got the classic Dallara P217 LMP2 car heading on out there, and the final 12 minutes of the qualifying session will be dedicated to those 2 cars. We do have a race director in effect who will be monitoring the race and monitoring qualifying to let our drivers when they can know to go out on circuit. And also on top of that, in regards to rules, let's talk a little bit about the races, of course. We're in our races. Firstly, in the sprint race, the race shall commence via a rolling start with designated green flag zone, and that'll apply as well for the feature race and the designated green flag zone will be on the run out of turn 14, and as soon as they make the way into the start-finish straight, the leader can choose to go. Now, as for the sprint race in terms of fast repairs, our drivers have one fast repair available, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points. Meanwhile, in the feature race, where it's the same rolling start procedure, drivers shall have two fast repairs available in the feature race to get one extra repair there, because it is 60 minutes in length. Grid order shall be a reverse grid, and that'll be class reverse grid based on the results of the sprint race, and drivers who did not finish the sprint shall start from the back of their respective class, and that is to ensure parity and fairity within each of the classes. Now, as for drive-through penalties, if a driver picks up 25 or more instant points, and that includes off-tracks and contacts with other drivers or loss of control of the car, then they'll have a drive-through penalty. And as for pit stops, well, we will have one mandatory pit stop in which fuel must be taken. Changing tyres, however, is entirely down to the driver. They only need to take on the fuel, and you can imagine our drivers will be trying to do as much fuel saving to minimise their time in the pits, but will they have the tyres to take them to at the end, or will they find themselves coming unstuck right at the end? That's going to be the big question. But enough about rules and regulations. I think that's more than enough. Let's head back to circuit side here and get ready to go racing. And of course, the first car we do need to introduce is none other than the cars that are parked up right now. And well, you can see here, it's a good number of our BMW V8M hybrids there parked up, including Benjamin McCluskey. And we have got an absolute roster of drivers here. And you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, we do have a number of classes there, including some drivers who have not quite got their data loaded as of yet, but a courtesy there from the Runner Motorsport privateer of Chris Daines, the Danishman making his way out of the pit lane, and well, we'll get to see him, of course, defending his effective title from Season 1 because he was our LMP2 or our Proto Pro winner in the Apex Racing Academy class, and well, Chris Daines with the #1 on the car, he'll have it all to do, albeit in a different machine this time around, upgrading from the Dallara P217 to the much more tricky 640 horsepower with an electric motor added in as well, which gives it extra horsepower, which our drivers have to choose to deploy lap in, lap out, but it will be on Chris Daines that all the pressure sits, and will he be able to bring it on home come the end of the season and defend his crown successfully? Well, I think he's definitely in with a good chance for the simple reason that he is a very fast driver, Chris Daines, and you can't put it past him to really put the hammer down round after round, lap after lap. And you'll remember, of course, at the very start of the season and for the majority of the season in Season 1, he really was the driver who was absolutely unstoppable. Now, you may be asking, okay, do we have any other returning champions in the respective classes then? Because we do have Chris Daines here, but what about other drivers? Well, you may recall, and in fact, as I sat down getting ready to cover tonight's racing, I actually had a quick run through of all the winners from Season 1. They just came to mind immediately. That's how much of an effect Season 1 had on me in terms of the absolute joy, and indeed so many of you enjoyed watching Season 1. And of course, we had two lobbies back then. We had the Apex Racing Academy lobby, and we also had the Coach Dave Academy lobby. And in the Apex Racing Academy lobby, it was Chris Daines who took the LMP2 championship as the LMP2 Pros, or the Proto Pros. And then in the GT3 Pro class, it was, we do recall, I think it was Carmelo Martello or Callum Reed-Garton, one of the two there. Haven't quite been able to get the annuals out to double check that. In the GT3 AM class, if my memory serves me correctly, it was Matt Evans who just took the championship on the second time of asking, in terms of being very close to it in the GT3 championship the season before. We do not have either of those drivers returning as of today, unfortunately, so we won't have them trying to defend their GT3 crown. And then as for what was in the GT3 class in the Coach Dave Academy lobby, well, there the story was with regards to the pros, it was Lucas Romano, and in the AMs it was Tristan Dino Brega, and in the LMP2 AM class that was at the top of the standings in the Coach Dave Academy lobby, it was none other than Paul Walton from RD Simsport who took the crown in a championship long battle with Stefan Vessels. Well, we can tell you one thing, we do have Stefan Vessels returning to the tarmac as of this season. I do believe, I may be incorrect on that, but we do have one of his compatriots with regards to what used to be known as Racing Team Astra, and in fact here is Sean Scooter making his way down towards turn #1. I think I might have got a little bit ahead of myself there in saying that Stefan Vessels is back, but we do have an absolutely packed field, and well, it's not just about Vessels and company and the guys at what is the privateer outfit Racing Team Astra, but let's introduce some of our other drivers. Indeed, some of you will have seen that recently in our most recent rendition of the GT3 Championship, and they've decided to switch up the cars, as we do say hello there in the YouTube chat to Elwin Sykes. Good evening to you, Elwin. And we see you there saying GT3 time, baby. Thanks to Mark Sykes for the sexy livery. My brother from another mother. Indeed, Elwin Sykes and Mark Sykes, you will have seen in the NXTCC, the Touring Car Championship Season 2. Not related, but both share the same surname. And we also say hello there to Gavin Garner. Of course, we'll be cheering on fellow Verona Motorsport driver of Chris Staines. Good evening to you, Gavin. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well as well, Elvin. And we also say hello there to Paul Johnson in the YouTube chat, who is cheering on Ingar. And well, we are looking around for our drivers right now to introduce as the checker flag comes on out here, and it's time for us to immediately go into qualifying. Well, the time has worn down, and let's see how our drivers get on in the opening qualifying session of the season. Now, as they get ready to go, of course, GT3s will make the way on out first, and we do see a couple of them already making the way out. Looking out my commentary booth window, and as we look there to Ole Martin Mørk, as we can see here, the Norwegian making his way on down for Team Slow-Mo. We do have a grand total of 3 teams from Team Slow-Mo, albeit they've been broken up into 3 sub-teams, given the fact we have a grand total of 10 drivers from Team Slow-Mo, if my memory serves me correctly, in attendance in this series. But as we see here, the Norwegian of Mørk making his way down towards turn number 1 and out. Well, right now, Ole Martin will be doing everything he can to try and get a bit of tyre temperature into the car. Indeed, as we bring up the weather on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see there, with regards to the conditions today, well, ambient temperature 18 degrees centigrade, track temperature currently 19 degrees centigrade, but we do expect that track temperature to rise, of course, as our drivers put in lap after lap, but a relatively cool local temperature today compared to what it could be, and that may just assist our drivers in terms of managing those tyres lap after lap, and also getting themselves gradually into the swing of things with regards to qualifying, because of course with the improved GT3 tyre model, or we could say the reduced GT3 tyre model, given the fact that tyre degradation has now been increased on the tyres as a whole, and also the ability to overload the tyre early on and overheat it is much more prominent. It does mean for our drivers they will need to be very picky in terms of when they really push the compound to its maximum. But as we do see our drivers making their way on around and getting themselves set for their first flying laps, we also see and say hello here to Jordan Benoit, as we see the driver making his way up towards what is the right-hander of Dunlop, coming on through in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo in the 64 car. And we'll to take you through our classes there, because we see one driver getting it wrong and pointing the wrong way. Well, that wasn't Jack Barker getting it wrong, and Jack Barker there, the privateer from Made for Racing, the Briton, in his first league race on iRacing, as I'm to understand it, in the number 6 car, making his way out to turn number 14 in the Audi R8 LMS GT3, and he'll be competing in the gold class. And on the tower there on the left-hand side, you'll notice we do have all of our classes listed, also colorations against them. And just to clarify, we have the LMDh gold class, which is the BMW V8 hybrid class. That's their top class, and then we also do have the LMDh silvers. Now, because we can't use duplicate colours, our LMDh golds will be represented by blue sashes on the timing tower. The silvers will be represented by what is there, a red purple sash, or a pink sash if you will. And then when we come to the GT3s, well, the GT3 golds will be represented by gold, the silvers represented by grey silver, and the bronze represented, well, you guessed it, by brown bronze. And we also do have the LMP2 prototype class. There are only 5 drivers in that class, but still everybody valuable out on the circuit, and they will have the light green against their name. As we see here, Eric Silverstone making his way on towards turn number 1 as he charges on down here and gets himself set for his first flying lap. And if you look on the circuit map in the top right corner of your screen, you notice a lot of our drivers deciding to go close together initially, and that's more for time rather than trying to get the toe off of one another, albeit the toe could make a huge difference in the run down the start finish straight. It could be worth up to half a second, if not more, in the run from 14 to 1. But in return, of course, with so many of the corners around here, really abusing the downforce of the car, particularly its run here through turns 4 and 5, as we see Sylvester making his way on through. And we've got the driver off there who's got it horrifically wrong coming out the corner. I do believe that may have been Beauvoir as they make the way down towards turn number 5. And well, I believe that there it is, the driver's got it wrong, Jordan Beauvoir. And meanwhile, we see here Sylvester again, it all nice and tight coming out the turn 6 hairpin and down towards 8, 9, 10 he goes. But as he makes his way down, we also see the return after a long hiatus of Ollie Wayne here, making his way down the start finish straight as a privateer, running the Next Gen Racing colours as he heads on down in the toe there of Jack Barker as they make the way in towards the braking zone for turn number 1. And as they come roaring on down here, well, right now Wayne, well, he's not quite as fast as Tom Bingham, but he's still got a bit of time to go, and indeed more and more times coming on in on the timing tower there on the left-hand side. And remember, this is the first draw with regards to laps. They've still got plenty of time to go. As we do see here, RT Chatsikons making his way down towards turn number 10. Now, yes, shortened his surname for us as a bit of a courtesy there, and we didn't ask him to shorten his surname, but with regards to Mr. Chatsikons, he makes one through, gets it a little bit wrong there. will Chance Constantinu, as he's known in full. We gets it a bit wrong coming out to turn number 10, and it does not quite work out for him. But as we can see there, we've got our full names on the timing tower at the moment, but it is occupying a little bit of real estate on the screen for you. So we are now just going to cut the names slightly away and focus on having their surnames there, so that way you've got that clearer picture of all of our drivers. And as they make the way on through here, well, we can see Ole Martin Muir as he makes his way up the hill into next bend, rolling his way into left-hander right now, keeping it nice and smooth as he comes on through, and will very shortly be riding on board with a driver for a flying lap around here. And in fact, we will ride on board with Ole Martin Muir as he makes his way into turn 14 and heads down the start-finish straight. Now coming on down towards turn number 1, he exited turn 14, going up into third gear immediately, and now it's the long run. You may be asking yourself, when is it going to end? Well, this is 0.9 miles, and this is where we'll see our drivers get up into top gear as they charge all the way down. Not quite in top gear yet. The Ferrari, of course, a bit gradual to get up into 6th gear. When he decides upshift, he does indeed, just before the 250 board, and then braking at about 125 metres, coming all the way down the gearbox to first gear, bringing it to a halt at 46 miles an hour, and then powering out. He's got a bit of traffic ahead in the form of Chance Constantinu as they make the way through to and up towards 3, but thankfully the other driver moves aside as now we come into turn 3 at Coca-Cola corner. 54 there, dab the brake, drop a gear, but the car snaps, loosening with understeer, and he can't quite catch it, and that is an unfortunate moment there as he returns to the pit lane. And well, we do have some other drivers making the way on around at the moment. We'll try to get a full on board at GT3 lap very shortly, but that just goes to show you they get it even slightly wrong, and it all goes horrifically in the wrong way and off circuit immediately, and that would have been an invalidated lap. But meanwhile, at the very top of the GT3 standings overall, currently in the GT3 Gold class, we do have Fredrik Stenzel de Roy as he makes his way down towards turn number 3. And I do apologise if I end up butchering any names today. Of course, it does happen every so often, but I'm sure our drivers will happily tell me how to get it right next time. I try to do as much studying as possible before we win a race here today. But we do have a number of Scandinavian drivers here, and as we do see Drury making his way through turns 4, 5 and up towards 6, and into the hairpin right now, with the Audi driving a 34.954, currently the fastest of everybody by a considerable margin in the Gold class. 3.5 tenths is no mean feat, and can he continue that run all the way down towards turn number 10? In the run on down here, of course, half his qualifying session complete now, and now it really starts up in the tempo because, of course, a lot of rubber being laid down. We say hello there to Stefan Vessels in the YouTube chat. Good evening to you, Stefan. I hope you're doing well. And as we see here right now, our provisional pole sitter overall in the GT3s and Gold class making his way on up the hill. And well, I was right earlier with Stefan confirming it. Bummed that he couldn't make tonight, and it is unfortunate you can't make it, Stefan. So I said earlier that you were returning as effectively one of our drivers was right up there in the previous rendition of the Proto GT3 Championship. And well, it's good to see you returning to this series, albeit not in this round. We look forward to seeing how you get on eventually when you can take to the tarmac. But as we do see it, Drury make his way down towards turn number 1 in the run. Can he improve this time? He does not improve with what is there a time of a 39.0, but he decides instead to now go on to another lap. As meanwhile, current bronze pole sitter in the GT3 class is Baz Meacham as he makes his way through 6 and into 7, and as he comes roaring on down towards turn number 10 here in the BMW M4. Well, the BMW M4 not a common pick in the GT3 class at the moment, argued according to the current iRacing balance of performance, which we are using, of course, the standard balance of performance as a car which does not quite have the pace compared to its peers. But right now, Meacham definitely proving it to be the opposite around here, given the fact he's 3.5 tenths faster than any of his fellow bronze GT3 class drivers. His next closest driver there is Benoit as they make the way on around, and will very shortly be riding on board with Baz Meacham for hopefully a full run of Fuji circuit in a GT3 as he makes his way out the final corner. And now let's ride on board and see how he gets on the next lap. Making his way down towards turn number 1, a long run, of course, all the way on down, riding on board the dashboard here almost as he heads down towards 1 and making his way up into 5th gear, shortly heading into 6th gear as he maxes on out. And in fact, we might be able to get a little bit of that position, in fact, just over the shoulder of the driver as he comes down towards turn 1. So you get the driver's perspective here as he brakes at around 120 metres from corner apex, coming all the way down to 2nd gear, collects it very nicely, and now powers out and makes his way through 2 and up towards 3. now in the charge here. Of course, he'll be looking for his brake mark on the right-hand side, looking over there, looking at the 50 board and braking at about 65 metres, drops a gear and holds it in fourth as he makes his way now down into turn number 4, keeps it close to the apex of 4, brings it in nice and tight, lifts off the throttle, drops down to third, and then gets back on the power gradually as he comes through 5 and up into 6, brings the car over to the right-hand side and now drops it down to second gear, braking at the 50-metre board in the downhill run, goes a little bit deep and wide, and unfortunately he's going to have to return there, and he backs off the lap, but he's going to carry the lap on all the same, and that means we do get to see the entire lap as he makes his way down through 8, 9 and into 10, into the braking zone here for Dunlop, coming down to third gear, down to 82 miles an hour, but then back on the throttle immediately as he touches the apex, brings the car back up to speed, and now into turn number 11 here, down to second gear, hits the apex curve, and then keeps going to left hand side here at turn 12, lets the car then creep out for 13 at next bend, drops down to second, brings it in, and there's the apex as you rise in towards turn number 14 he goes now, and as he comes through the right hander, it's the apex that never arrives, and suddenly it does. He comes now in second gear, now powering to the line. It was a bit of an aborted lap, however, given the loss of the run coming out of turn number 6 and going a bit wide, and an invalidated lap with it, but still that is a lap on board with Baz Meacham, current bronze pole sitter in the GT3 class. He makes his way to the timeline and now heads on down towards turn number 1 with Effecti in his pocket. 1.5 more laps to go, so that'll be a full 2 laps he has available, given the fact he's still got 2 minutes on the clock. But meanwhile, in the silvers, we see here Ryan Walker making his way into turn number 1 in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, and arguably one of the stronger cars currently in the GT3 class based on the current balance of performance. It's normally between the Audi and the Lamborghini Huracan, but the difference is the Audi is a little bit more risky in terms of it's a car that really does want to bite you when you're not able to keep it stable. The Lamborghini a little bit slower by comparison, but very planted for a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, and of course both of them powered by the same Audi V10 engine. But as we see here, Walker making his way into turn number 6, through the hairpin he goes. Again, a very deceptive corner where you really need to try and bring the car in through, and he just stays within track limits there, keep 2 wheels on the curbing as he makes his way down through 8, 9 and up towards 10. Well, Walker 2.5 tenths faster than Bingham and continues to do everything he can as he makes his way through the right hander. Of course, we do have a number of teams competing in this series. Not everybody is a privateer, and as we go on through the evening, we'll talk a little bit about the teams. We have a couple of teams from NXTGEN Racing, and we also have a team from Performance Link, which for talking sake, Tom Bingham here, one of the Performance Link drivers. He makes his way through turn number 14 in the Porsche 911 GT3R as he comes on down as he roars his way all the way towards turn number 1. A long way to go here. The Porsche has a lot of strength in terms of the cornering and the handling, but where it may feel as though it's going to be a little bit down on pace will be on this start-finish straight, given the fact the car has a lot of ability in those corners, but as soon as you put it on the long straightway, you can imagine once it hits 6th gear, it really starts to hit a bit of a brick wall, much like the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo in a way, but the Ferrari does pick up a degree of pace on the straights compared to the Porsche, and it'll be interesting to see how Bingham can offset that deficit, if you will, with regards to the top end speed of the Porsche through the rest of the lap. And again, that's why we call this a circuit of contrast, because you have one very long straight, and then you have a load of medium speed corners, a load of low speed corners, and that means that every car does have the ability to do well here in theory, and it really does come down to the driver for maximising the strengths and mitigating the weaknesses. But meanwhile, speaking of someone who's just maximised the strengths there, Paul Scott for NXTGEN Racing jumps up to P3 on a 35.9. We have got a couple more drivers coming across the line very shortly, including Johan Ersson as he makes his way in there, but he does not improve in the end, so he stays P2 in the GT3 Gold class, and I believe there it will be a Friedrich Stenzel Drury who has taken the pole position in the Gold class. We've still got a couple of bronze drivers coming on down, including Ingar Almklov as he makes his way through the pit lane entry, so he's decided to get off of the lap there, and in fact I think we've had everybody either park up or drive back into the pits, so we are clear with regards to GT3s, and now we are waiting for the call with regards to our LMDh cars and our LMP2s to make the way on circuit. Well, here they go, ladies and gentlemen. You're getting to see for the first time in NXTGEN Racing's history with the Proto GT3 Championship the arrival of the BMW V8M Hybrid, and well, let's listen to them roar. And as they make their way on this outlap effectively now, it's going to be about getting on to that tyre temperature and getting set in the car as soon as possible. Of course, all our drivers have put in a lot of practice laps before making their way to the circuit today, and therefore they'll all be very eager to show what they can do. And also, with the fact they've been parked in the pit lane for so long, it does mean you start to get that little itch as a driver where you're waiting. Indeed, the number of drivers were asking in the build-up tonight, can they wait at the end of the pit lane? Can they start queuing at the end of the pit lane whilst the GT3 is going on? They were given permission to do so by a race director, but you can imagine with everybody wanting to get out of the circuit as soon as possible, that goes to show how much they want to show their prowess. Now, we do remind you, of course, that we do have a gold class for the LMDhs, and that's the BMW V8M hybrids, and also a silver class there, and we also do have an LMP2 class. And let's not forget about our LMP2s, including the one driven here by Mark Sykes for NXTGEN Racing Orange, as he makes his way up into turn number 11, coming through the left into right, in fact through 12 then, 13, and now up to 14 he goes. And as he makes his way into the final corner, these LMP2s have a bit less downforce, some a little less straight line speed, but by comparison they'll still fly on around this circuit. But as we see Sykes making his way onto the next lap, well, it's not just about him in the LMP2s. We also see here Kevin Stringer making his way down the start-finish straight, and we also do have from the LMP2 class Nigel Stock making his way on up the hill on his outlap. But as he heads on through there, we do look to David Harney, the LMDh driver, we should say, in the BMW, as he makes his way into his turn at number 6. And we say hello there to Ryan Walker, of course, driver in the GT3 Silver class. And congratulations, Ryan, for your pole position in the GT3 Silver class, and also second place on the overall GT3 grid. Brilliant effort for your open qualifying session, and not too far off of that overall pole position by only 2/10 at the end. As we see their driver getting it very, very wrong. And, well, that is Benjamin McCluskey going off circuit and charging off circuit with that. What on earth exactly happened to Benjamin McCluskey? Well, this was only moments to go, going into turn number 10, and just a brief touch of the grass, it would seem, on turning. Well, by looks things like that left-hand side, and the car just getting unsettled as a result. But return to live pictures then, thankfully him not in the wall, but he has to try and come on through and squeeze his way on through and back onto the circuit. He makes his way into turn number 13, and we're having to run as slow as possible there. But meanwhile, we've got our first lap starting to come in very shortly as Chris Daines here crosses the timeline, but he continues to go on around. In fact, we have got some times coming in from what is there Gaz Williams. We've also got Chris Jones. We've also got there Paul Williams and Callum Jenkins and Jamie Dorey. All the times that are coming on, and indeed there, Stefan, as you say in the YouTube chat, Benjamin McCluskey going full send on lap number 1. I think pushing it a little bit too hard, but still I'm sure he'll rein it in, rein the temper in, and gradually build himself up a little bit later on. But right now it does look as though Craig Jones selects provisional pole in the LMDh Gold class there on a 24.489, albeit William falls 6/10 off here. And again, it's going to be very fine margins when drivers do put those laps together, for the simple reason that they're going to be pushing as much as possible. And that is the challenge of the Fuji circuit as well. You have a lot of runoff space to play with, but of course if you use that runoff space, it will invalidate the lap, and also you do pick up a lot of marbles for your misdemeanors, and therefore you can imagine that right now drivers will want to be absolutely perfect. But the flip side of the coin is perfection demands precision, and to be precise, you've got to push it, and in turn by pushing it, you do leave yourself open to those mistakes. And indeed, when we talked about earlier, the Super GT races around here, effectively a Monday equivalent of an old GT2 style class machinery, and you can imagine the amount of downforce they're running, not quite as much as these LMDHs or LMPs, but when they tear around this circuit, it is literally right on the ragged edge all the way through. And as we see Jones making his way down towards turn number 1, coming to the end of his current lap and heading on across the line. Well, for Jones, it's going to be an improvement, we believe. In fact, it was not an improvement there. His final sector really impacted his lap, but meanwhile Gaz Williams in his tow, well, he's just been able to jump ahead of Jones by 8/10 there with a 23.668, but we are expecting more laps to come on in, to be fair, including from Chris Daines. He's yet to put in a lap that's truly representative of what he wants to do, but he's had 2 laps so far. The first lap was invalid, the second lap he's just put it on the board, and now I think he's going to start to try and deliver as soon as possible. But meanwhile, as he makes his way on around, we can see that in the LMP2 class that we do have Kevin Stringer, who's taken provisional pole by 2.5 over Mark Sykes for our 3 LMP2 cars that are here in attendance today, as he makes his way down through 4-5, rolling his way on through. And as he comes on through, what about our LMDh Silver class? Well, it is none other than Paul Williams right now, who is your current pole sitter in class. He makes his way on through. turns 1 and 2, and he's on a 24.922, and well, almost a whole 2 seconds of the fastest lap set by the LMDh Gold class, but at the same time doing things right now. And all that matters to him, of course, is the fact he wants to be pipping his colleagues in the class to the post in terms of that pole position, and well, that will be P4 overall in the class, which will also be a good achievement for him on his first round of the season. But as he makes his way on down, we're very shortly getting on board with one of our drivers heading onto a lap, and in fact we'll ride on board with Gray Jones as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. So charging on down here, we're on board the roll bar, we bring the dashboard up as well, and heading to turn number 1 at 187 miles an hour. He hits it onto the anchors, then comes through the opening corner, first gear, and now just powers up. Listen to this. Absolutely uncompromising through turn number 3, and through 4-5 he goes. And it's all about throttle control there as he comes through 4-5, braking into turn 6 hairpin. He was braking at the 50-metre board for Coca-Cola at turn number 3. Does the same there for turn number 6. Now roaring on down towards Dunlop corner as he makes his way through the long right hand here, deploying every bit of power he's got on the back straight as he heads into the braking zone. A bit of traffic ahead, however. Will it move aside? It does indeed, and Jones is not impacted too heavily. He heads up into turn number 11. Now as he drops all the way down to third gear, there's a bit of understeer that creeps in second gear, and the car just washes out then. It's not worked out for Jones, just trying to carry a bit too much speed, and the tyres did not want to cooperate, and that upsets the entire balance of the car there as he's now got to do it again, but definitely trying to push it there. And Jones now in P4 in the LMDh Gold class. You can understand he wants to push it, he wants to be right back up there. And Gaz Williams, meanwhile, or Gav Williams is known in full, but he prefers to be known as Gazza or Gaz Williams as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, currently provisional pole sitter, as he heads into what is the end of this lap. And well, this is not going to be an improving lap, but the next one may just be that as he makes his way down towards the opening right-hander. But as he roars his way on down, it's not just about the gold class LMDh drivers, of course, it's also about what is the LMDh silver class. And we have Paul Williams here, current provisional pole sitter in the LMDh silver, making his way through turn number 14, and we'll ride on board with him for hopefully what will be a full lap without compromise as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. Now here we'll catch him as he's accelerating all the way up through the gearbox, all the way towards 6th gear, and then, well, we'll have to wait and see. In fact, 7th gear there as he makes way towards the braking zone. 185, 186, 187, 188, 189, 190, and then brings it onto the brakes as he comes into the opening corner. Somebody's got it a bit wrong by looks of things, but Williams not flinching at that as he makes his way out to turn 1 and down towards 3 he goes. Looks to his right hand side for his brake marker. It'll be the 50 board as he gets ready. Dab of the brakes there, drops the 4th gear, and with the downshift now brings the car into the middle of the road. Into turn 4 he goes, flat out, lifts off as he exits 4, now into 5, holding the throttle steady, and as he powers out then now up into turn number 6. Brakes there at 55 metres, comes down to 2nd gear, back on the power immediately as he clears the corner apex, keeping well within the track limits, and now making his way in towards turn number 10. Through the double right he goes, down the hill, gradually get to the lowest point on the circuit here, looking to his right for his brake mark, the 100 metre board down the right hand side, drops it down to 4th, powers out then, heads up in towards turn number 11, gets ready for the right hand here, down to 3rd, will he drop to 2nd? He does indeed, downshifts just as turning into the corner, and now through turn number 12, up into next at 13 he goes, brings it down to 2nd gear, the car fights him however, as he downshifts there a little bit aggressively, and as they make their way out towards turn number 14 right now, Wolvo Williams, is it going to be an improving lap? I don't think so. In that in the final sector, his second sector was absolutely blistering compared to his previous best, but as he makes his way down the start finish straight here, he's going to have to beat a personal best of a 23.72. He heads to the line. What's it going to be this time for Williams? Is it going to be enough? No, it is not. He does not improve, and Jamie Dury right now holding that provisional silver pole in the LMDh class over Williams by a gap of 1.5 tenths. But meanwhile, as we look from them to the LMP2s, well, just behind you can see there, that is Kevin Stringer making his way up towards turn number 3 with 2.5 minutes to go. Of course, all drivers in the prototype classes are permitted to run all the way to the 25 minutes, and they will have the overtime afterwards to complete their current laps. But notice on the circuit map how in the GT3 class we had a lot of our drivers really condensed together, and they only really separated out on the last lap or two or started to look for distant toes. Meanwhile here we do have a lot more space between the majority of our drivers, everybody feeling as though they need clear air and perhaps catching someone on the exit of 14 on the start finish straight in order to get the optimum lap, because of course with that amount of dirty air comes the car in front, it will wash the nose of the car horrifically. But meanwhile, speaking of something that's not horrific, something that's wonderful from his perspective, Verano Motorsports. Chris Daines, the privateer, goes to pole position, the LMD Gold class there with 22.712. It's only 9 thousandths faster than Gaz Williams, but it's enough there, whether it's a thousandth or a whole tenth or a whole second. Winning's winning, as they say, and Chris Daines right now is on his way to provisional pole overall, and also in the LMDh Gold class. He makes his way down towards turns 4 and 5. He's left it to very late in the day, but it's come at the last possible moment. He's got one more lap on the clock here. We believe, based on his current time, he may actually squeeze another one in, but can Gaz Williams respond? And Williams not too far behind here, and I think Williams might be doing a little bit of a long distance sightseeing here with regards to seeing what Daines is doing compared to him and trying to find that last little bit of the lap. And as he makes his way on down there, coming on down towards turn number 10, we're going quite slowly there, in fact, as he makes his way on through now, bringing himself back up to speed. And I think they're observing Chris Daines, but the two of them are getting themselves set up, and both of them, I think, trying to get the toe of the other one on that start finish straight. But as they make the way on around, we do look to what is Jochen Seeger here as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. In the long run, he goes for what is his team, and as he makes his way on down in the Bentley inspired livery, of course the Bentley Motorsport livery on the car, well, currently P3 in the LMDh Silver class, a 34.218 there, not an improvement. That was a warm-up lap, and now he'll go one more time in anger with a 24.73, his personal best to beat, but the best of the class held by Jamie Dorr is a 23.56, so he's got 1.1 seconds to close. And then some, as we say hello there to Motorsport Magpie, who says go TB the Overlord. Well, with regards to TB there, you might have to clarify who that is. I believe that might be Tom Bingham that you're referring to. I think he's the only one with the initials TB, our GT3 Silver driver who qualified P2 in the GT3 Silver class today. And well, it's great to see so many of you tuning in and letting us know who you are cheering on, as we see there Magna Jonlund making his way across the timeline, and he will have no more laps available to him. It'll be P5 in the LMDh Gold class, P6 overall. It will be the best he can achieve, but will he be demoted? Meanwhile, other drivers still coming through. We've got William Foyle here making his way on through the left into right, but he gets it a bit wrong, then drops into the depression on the exit curve at turn number 3. And well, I can tell you there, if you find a wheel getting trapped in that exit curve depression, it can really catch the car out. It's a water drain effectively, but dipping a wheel in there as you try to turn on out can really compromise you. And well, I think for Foyle, this may be a lap that's gone a bit too far. But meanwhile, speaking of laps that are coming together, Jochen Seeger right now looking to improve from P3 in the LMDh Silver class. He comes across the line, improving in Sector 2, doesn't improve in Sector 3. As he comes on through there, is it an improvement? It is. He's halved his deficit to provisional pole sitter Jamie Dorey, but it's still P3 for him, 6 tenths off. We have also got, I believe, Callum Jenkins coming to the line, and what will Jenkins be able to achieve as he comes on through? It's not going to be an improvement in there for Jenkins. He will be 4th and last of our LMDh Silver drivers. We've also got Chris Daines coming on through, but he's coming into the pits alongside Gaz Williams, and I think that will effectively mean that Chris Daines takes overall pole position and LMDh Gold pole for the season opener. William Foyle makes his way on in as well. I think all of our drivers here deciding that they can't really improve anymore, and as we see our LMP2s making their way out of the final corner and heading down towards turn number 1, both of them over to the side there, so they've come off their laps, which will mean that Kevin Stringer will be your LMP2 Dallara pole sitter, and then we will have in the silver class, where you can see that the only silver driver out there on the cool down lap, it will be Jamie Dorey, who takes LMDh silver pole. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is qualifying complete. You can see on the left hand side of your screen the top 3 in qualifying for each class. In the LMDh Gold class, it is there Chris Daines who took pole position. That's overall pole and LMDh overall pole as well. In the LMDh Silver class, it was Jamie Dorey who qualifies 5th on the overall grid. We've got Kevin String in the LMP2s, Frederick Drury in the GT3 Gold, and we're carrying down the order as we now take to the grid for race number 1 of today. Well, as our grid gets set, let's walk you through them as they stand. They line up as follows for the sprint race of round 1 of season 2 of the Next Gen Racing Proto GT3 Championship, hosted here today at Fuji Speedway. Chris Daines takes overall an LMDh pole position, and also in the LMDh Gold class by a margin of only 9 thousandths over Gaz Williams. Can the Verano Motorsport privateer hold off the Next Gen Racing purple driver? That will be the challenge that he is presented with. Then we have Benjamin McCluskey and William Foyle on the second row, the Next Gen Racing purple driver just ahead of the privateer, with Jamie Dorey, your LMDh silver pole sitter, joined on the third row by Magna Jonlund from Team Slow-Mo Black. The Next Gen Racing orange driver have behind him directly on the grid Paul Williams for Speed 9 Esports, and it's David Harney in a P8 there on the fourth row, before we have SCCR Sim Sports Craig Jones starting off our fifth row, joined by Jochen Seeger from Speed 9 Esports. Then starting off row number 6, it's Callum Jenkins, the privateer, joined by Kevin Stringer from SCCR Esports there, and Kevin Stringer, of course, your pole sitter in what is the LMP2 class. And as we continue to make our way in haste down the order, Nigel Stott, the privateer, starts off row number 7, joined by Mark Sykes. That's the LMP2s covered, and then we come on to the GT3s, and it's Frederick Dree who takes pole position in the GT3 class overall, and in the gold class, the Team Slow-Mo driver ahead of Ryan Walker there from the silver class, and he's your silver pole sitter in the GT3s. Johan Essen in the Team Slow-Mo machine takes P17 on the 9th row, joined by Russell Fowler from Performance Link Esports. And as we do look to the blimp camera to see them all in their splendour with regards to liveries, we can see there Jack Barker, P19, the privateer, joined by Ole Martin Mjörk for Team Slow-Mo, completes the top 20. Tom Bingham from Performance Link Esports, joined by Eric Benson there in Team Slow-Mo's P22 car in the number 9 car. Then we have Baz Meacham, your GT3 bronze pole sitter, the privateer, joined by Paul Scott from Next Gen Racing Orange on the 12th row. Carrying on down even further still, Espresso Rian from Team Slow-Mo on the 13th row with Ollie Wayne. Then on the 14th row, it's Stefan Albanese and Ingar Almklov. And then we can see behind them, completing the top 30, it is the Frenchman of Jordan Baybois, joined by Ben Bennyworth. And then we have Sean Scooter and Daniel Sitzmon starting on the 16th row with Mark Arrowsmith and Elwin Sykes on the 17th row. And then we have Eric Silverstone and RT Chatsikon-Stanantinu who starts P36 there, and they are on the what is the 18th row. And as we carry on down, we have then on the 19th row, last but not least, the pairing of Magnus Bergacker and what is Stefan Vessels, who could not make tonight, but we will have a grand total of 37 drivers going racing. But as we look up to the front of the field, we get ready to go here, and it is for Chris Daines to take us away for the season opening race. Now, of course, they will go in the green zone coming out to this corner, 1 second gap between each of the classes.
Green flag.
And it's lights out and away we go for the season opener here at Fuji Speedway as Chris Daines goes as late as possible, and they make their way down towards turn 1. He has to defend versus Gazza Williams there, and also William Voll, but Williams tries to go around the outside, and as they make their way on through side by side, Daines retakes the lead, but not without a little moment at the rear of the car. Meanwhile, further back there we can see a number of the silvers and the gold drivers coming together in the LMDh class. So we see Jochen Seeger battling hard with Callum Jenkins. Meanwhile, a little bit further back we can see that in the LMP2 class, Mark Sykes having to fend off Nigel Stock, and in the GT3 we can see there Frederick Stenzel Dehoy making its way down through turn number 3 and in towards 4 with the trio there almost going 3 wide for a brief moment of Russell Fowler, who tucks on in and behind Essen as they make the way through the right-hander at turn number 5 and up towards 6 they go. And the GT3s, everybody has survived the start of the race, no major incidents, but in our GT3 class it's already 2 for now. Wherever you look, there's got a car around there, and that is Mjörk, Ole Martin Mjörk, who's pointing the wrong way in the Ferrari there in the rear of your pitch now as they make the way on through. But as they come on down towards turn number 10 for the first time of asking, you can see already how Baz Meacham having to go defensive, not versus bronze drivers, but versus drivers in the silver and gold class. So they make the way up the hill towards turn number 11. And as they roll the way into the right-hander here for Meacham, it's all about just getting his head down and pushing on for the simple reason he has a great start and he doesn't need to compromise it any further. But meanwhile, just there, Jack Barker under pressure from what is Eric Benson, both of them in the gold class there, and Barker trying to hold on to P4 in the gold class as they make the way through turn number 14 in the GT3s. But as they exit on out now onto the start-finish straight, it looks like Barker getting a better lap and he should have the run in the Audi down towards turn number 1, albeit with the slipstream. Benson may just come back at him, but meanwhile at the front of the field, coming out of turn 1 on lap number 2 already, albeit 20 minutes of racing action, of course, as they make their way down towards the left-hander, we should say right from our perspective, but left from them. It is turn number 3 coming to Coca-Cola, and we can see that Chris Daines ahead of Benjamin McCluskey, and then Gaz Williams in P3 as they make the way through turns 4 and 5. And right now the NXTGEN Racing purple drivers are trying to sort themselves out with Jamie Dury tucked in behind them. He is your LMDh silver leader right now, and he's right in the draft of his fellow LMDh gold drivers as they make the way up towards turn number 10. And Craig Jones here trying to go on the offensive versus Magno Jonland as they make the way in towards the right-hander of Dunlop as they come all the way down here. Looks like Jones having to back out there and not quite having the run as they head on through. But meanwhile, further back, we've got a car pointing the wrong way, and I believe that was Ingar Almklov as he brings it back together, although I'm not 100% sure what exactly's happened there, other than we have had a lot of smoke of the car that was going sideways for a brief moment. But what we can tell you is that Stefan Albanese trying to go around the outside there of Almklov as they make the way up towards turn number 10 now, and Albanese gets it done around the outside as we bring the battle box up in where's the bottom right corner of your screen. But as they come on down here towards turn number 10 once again, well, for Albanese it's all about keeping it short, sweet and simple here as he tries to push on and go hunting as he rolls his way into turn number 11, 12 and up towards 13 he goes, and will make it some ground. He's got a long way to go if he wants to go hunting after what will be his silver peers, because right now he's quite a way off as we've got a car pointing the wrong way there, and that is your gold leader who's pointing the wrong way. And it's gone so very, very wrong for the team slow-mo driver of Frederick Stenzel as he makes his way down towards, we're up towards turn number 14, but what exactly happened, that's the big question. Well, it's a spin. We catch the tail end of it there, but I think there's a bit more to it than that. In fact, as we get an earlier look back, leading, and as he comes out of turn 13, gets the power down, and the rear just simply lets go. No grip on those rear tyres. The power goes on through, and it is all over there in terms of that ability to be leading in the class so early on. But still, he's got plenty of racing to go. And remember, it is class reverse grid. So long as he finishes the race, he will be right back up there, albeit it's not the way he wants to take pole position, of course, in a race, but it's one way of getting right back up into the mix. But now as we return to the live pictures here, and well, our drivers make the way on down the round, we can see, meanwhile, looking back up to what is the LMDh class here, we have Chris Daines who continues to lead, albeit they're running on the pit entry line and then swerving a little bit onto natural race line. He's worried about the tow that Benjamin McCluskey is getting as they make their way down towards turn number 1. Once again, he does not want anybody benefiting from the draft. You can understand why as he comes into the right-hander, as he makes his way on out here. We do look from our LMD drivers to what is our GT3s, and well, we do have a bit of battling going on further down as we see here RT Chatsikons or Chatsikon as he makes his way out to turn it number 10 and up towards 11, and we're right now running P7 in the GT3 bronze class, a bit of a way off, and he does have the previous gold leader of Drury making his way up towards turn number 13 right behind him. But meanwhile, a little bit further up there, we can see Ingar Alklov falling back from the back of Elwin Sykes, a second between him and the next driver in class, and of course he's running P5 at the moment in the GT3 bronze class. But by the contrary, we can see that as well. We do have Eric Silverstone as he makes his way on from the Team Slow-Mo leftovers driver here with his fellow Team Slow-Mo driver behind. Will not be too worried about the fact they're together as they make the way on down. But meanwhile, we can see Sean Scooter there going defensive versus Stefan Albanese, and well, Scooter currently P3 in the GT3 bronze class. Meanwhile, for Albanese running in the silver class in P7. For Scooter, well, I think he'll be wary of this and probably not wanting to battle it too hard as they make the way up towards turn number 3. But meanwhile, here's some of you asking there in the chat what's exactly happening to Stitzmon as we do look for some other drivers out on circuit. And here is Daniel Stitzmon as we see here Rossum's Universal Robots driver going a little bit deep at turn number 5, but to be fair to him, letting his fellow gold drivers go on through and therefore not battling hard. But of course what this will do as we ride aboard the gearbox is it will put him in direct line of sight with Sean Scooter there in the battle for P2 in the bronze class, which right now Stitzmon is holding on, but for how long as he makes his way down towards turn number 10. Now in to the right-hander he goes, and as he does there, hooks out very nicely, takes a little bit of grass. All of them are doing so to be fair. They're trimming that grass on the exit at turn number 10. They've got to be careful, of course. They put too many tyres beyond it, and it can all go very, very wrong. We have got a spin on circuit just ahead, we believe, for Jack Barker, who's got it wrong as he's returned to speed as the privateer. And what exactly has happened to Jack Barker here, you ask? Will we take a look back? Well, this was only moments ago, coming through turn number 11 and running at the time in the battle for P3 in what was the gold class, and the rear just letting go there going into next bend, and everyone passing the season. A whack there for Baz Meacham. That's not going to help the pair of them whatsoever, but Barker able to get it going once again, but a difficult moment for him on his debut, and indeed Baz Meacham as well. He will be nursed in his BMW M4 to a degree now as we return to the live pictures, and well, as our drivers make the way on around here, they make the way onto their 5th lap under racing conditions, and well, we can tell you that right now the LMDh is in fact going on to the 6th lap already as they come on through, but Barker having a difficult moment there, but at the same time he's got a little bit of space to next driver. He had a little bit of space, we should say, as we see there while the drivers are peeling out of the way, and it was a car that was not battling in the gold class, and now we do have here Berger making his way after Barker in the battle for P4 in the gold class as they make the way on through in these GT3 class machines. But as they head out of turn number 6 and down towards turn number 10, you can see also there a little bit further back how we do have Simon chasing after Berger, but in return he does have Rian behind him as they make the way in towards the next sequence of corners, and well, for them right now, I think for the Czech driver, he just needs to focus on head down second place, but it's not head down there for Sean Scudder, who's got it very wrong at Dunlop, and the car has bounced off the circuit into the runoff area, but the BMW driver parks up there and patiently waits for everybody to come on through. That's going to be frustrating for the Racing Team Astra driver, and another driver falls foul at turn number 10, but meanwhile we must look up at the front of the field and hold up a second. Jamie Dory's just parked there. Well, that's somewhere you definitely don't want to be parking as he tries to get those wheels to turn, and it looks so he's stuck potentially on the grass. And what exactly has happened to Dory, we'll find out very shortly, but meanwhile we're finding out right now what's happening at the very front of the GT3s, and we can tell you that it's a battle for overall GT3 position between the gold leader of Johan Essen and what is that, Ryan Walker, your silver class leader, as they make the way down towards turn number 3, into left-hander they go, roaring on through, and right now the Norwegian here definitely under a lot of pressure from Walker as they make the way through 4 or 5, and you can see here the Briton definitely trying to make a point here, which is I may be silver on paper, but I've definitely got gold in my eyes as they make the way through turn number 3, turn number 6 I should say, and up towards 7. They've already passed turn 3 a lot earlier on as they make the way out. Behind you also do have here what is the combination from Performance Link Esports of Russell Fowler and Tom Bingham running together, and right now Russell Fowler P2 in the gold class and his teammate in the silver class P2 as well, so they'll want to work together here in order to catch up to the battle between the leaders, and of course they may find they're stepping on one another's toes too much as we say hello there to Pavel V in the YouTube chat, who is cheering on Daniel Stimon as we continue to watch this battle for P2 across what is the gold and silver classes unfold. Well, right now they'll want to get as close as possible, and Fowler in the Mercedes Evo, very strong car on the straight, so you can imagine if he nails it out of the next corner, he may just have the run to close up a little bit down towards turn number 1. But we're not quite at the halfway point of this race yet. We're only almost to 10 minutes. We've still got 10 after that to go. Meanwhile, we've got a huge incident in the run to turn number 13. What on earth has happened there? Callum Jenkins is completely missing the rear of the car, practically, in terms of the rear wing, and I think a lot of drivers there have had it go horribly wrong. We take a look back very shortly. Jochen Seeger has gained from it from Speed 9 Esports. I think he also got caught up in Jamie Dory as well, who was leading in the LMDh silver class for so long, has also been towed to the pits. So Dory and Jenkins having a nightmare moment, and we'll very shortly take a look back, but before we do, we've got more battling going on here, and in fact it is right now some LMDh is trying to come through as we see the Team Slow-Mo black machine of Eric Silverstone will coming into the pits with damage, and I think he was involved in that incident, and it's cost him very dear. And in fact we do now take a look back and find out exactly what happened. We've got a car pointing the wrong way there first. We've got a car off as well, 2 cars off. So Silverstone just took it easy, and then it was 3 wide, and well, Silverstone had nowhere to go. He did everything in his power to stay clear of the carnage, but there was a lot more to it than that. I do believe we did have a couple of LMDHs off, but it's hurt him very badly. Mark Harrismith as well at the same time, going very slowly in the run through turn number 11 on that lap, so he was not caught up in all of this, but definitely found his way on through. And well, Jamie Dory, we see that in the pit lane, but we're not exactly sure what happened to Jamie Dory. We are just trying to find out what happened with regards to all those incidents, but definitely a nightmare moment for so many drivers, and it has opened up the field somewhat in the LMDh class. And right now Paul Williams is your LMDh silver leader. Meanwhile, Chris Danes retains the lead of the LMDh gold class, clear of all the incident and carnage, and therefore not caught up in it at all. But as we watch here, your gold GT3 leader of Essen making his way down towards turn number 1. once again, and Ryan Walker there not too far behind. It does look as though right now Walker not trying to push the tempo on this as they make the way on in, but heading through turn number 1 and up towards 3 they go. And well, Stefan Vessel saying there TCR vibes tonight, and I think a bit of door rubbing that's gone a bit too far there if we use the TCR analogy. And also we say hello there to Breezy in the YouTube chat, who does have a bit of a laughing face and I think laughing at Stefan Vessel's joke. But meanwhile, as I try to make the way down, of course the LMDh is out on the 9th lap of running here. We still do have another 8 minutes to go, and as they make the way on through, we can see some LMDh trying to pick their way in amongst the GT3 leaders. William Foyle there making his way on through past the 2 performance link machines, and very shortly he'll be looking to try and find his way past what is both there, Walker and Essen, as they make the way down towards turn number 10 in the run here, and Foyle up the inside there. And this is where that multi-class element really now to start to rear its ugly head, as some drivers would argue. For me, I think it's a bit of a beautiful look with regards to the fact you do have that extra complexion of having to navigate traffic if you're in the faster car, and doing so safely, because of course the president is on the faster class of driver to safely find their way past the slower class, not the other way round. In terms of the slower class, it's not expected to just suddenly jump out the way if they're in the racing line and just carrying on their merry way. But meanwhile, we see Foyle here carrying on all the same, and we look from him to class leader in the LMDh, of which Chris Dainter, as he makes his way into turn number 1, and coming on through right now the privateer. We is a gap of 3.6 seconds, comfortably ahead, 7 minutes to go here, and can anything stop him right now other than a mistake of his own doing or a major incident? That will be the big question that we'll be asking here, and I don't think anything's going to stop him right now, although he will be wary of the fact that he is coming up behind a bit of traffic and goes to the runoff area there, and he's got to be careful of course, because there's not too much grip on that outside exit line, and particularly on that runoff area it will cost him very dear, but that time he kept it pointing to the straight line. But meanwhile, we see here Sean Scudder, the privateer from Racing Team Astra, battling side by side with Ollie Waynes there as they make the way out of turn number 14, and they head on down towards turn number 1. And here it's going to be the power of the 2 German machinery, with of course Waynes there with the V8, and then Sean Scudder with the 6-cylinder engine of the BMW. And as they make the way on down here, well, no turbo in that Mercedes, but plenty of turbo in the BMW. Scudder's going to look up the inside. It's for GT3 overall position, not for class position, as Scudder runs me on Wayne Silver, but Scudder there goes down the inside and gets it done, but he runs a little bit wide. But after getting it wrong earlier on at turn number 10, he won't be looking to get it wrong a second time as they make the way up towards turn number 3, and he gets the move said and done. As they come on through, unfortunately, we won't be able to take a look back at what happened to Sean Scudder when he did have that spin at turn 10. We caught the midpoint to end of it. We didn't catch the start of it, but as he makes his way on through right now, he'll put it behind him and will make his way up towards turn number 6. But defending still versus Wayne here as he comes through. Meanwhile, Ryan Walker, as we look up to your leader in the silver class, well, he has fallen back a little bit to what is Tom Bingham behind, and Bingham closing in as we ride on board with the Performance Link esports driver. And this is the battle for the win in the GT3 silver class. And you can see Walker going defensive already. They've still got 5.5 minutes to go as well, and that is a long time here at Fuji in terms of number of laps to be turned. Now Walker there defends the inside, and Bingham here cuts back in behind as they make the way out of turn number 1 and up towards 3 they go. They do have Essen ahead of them as well, and they'll both be looking to try and use a little bit of his toe on the straights. But right now as they make the way into turn 3 and deeper into the corner complexes, you can imagine for Bingham he's got to try and mediate that dirty air, the wash over the front of the car, which will really be hurting that front end downforce and also overheating those front tyres. He makes his way into turn number 6 and up his inside. There goes David Harney, the LMDh Gold driver, coming on through from P7 in the LMDh Gold class. He's trying to recover his way into this race, of course, after an early incident. But as they make the way in towards turn number 10, into the right-hander they go. Essen having to go defensive, and meanwhile Walker, as a result, closed up dramatically to the gold leader here. Can he put the pressure on as we continue to ride on board with Bingham here all the way through turn 11? We'll get to the very top of the rise at turn number 14 before they head down that straight, and we'll see them from the exterior cameras. And as they make the way through, they've got Jochen Seeger coming up behind him, the LMDh silver driver, who is running P2 in class at the moment, so he'll want to try and clear them soon. But I think he's going to play the patience game. But as they come on now and rolling on through, we do also have the battle in the LMP2 class, and you can see that Kevin Stringer from SCCR Sim Sports making his way through turn number 14, and behind him there is Mark Sykes and Nigel Stock. A little bit further back, Nigel Stock then P3, not to get confused with the BMW Hybrid that's coming on past what is Mark Sykes there, and that being the car of Jamie Dory. But as they make their way on through and down, we do cut back to very shortly what is the battle in the GT3 class here, as the three GT3 leaders, albeit the leader of the gold class ahead of the two silver leaders, they make the way on down. But it's great to see so many of you there calling out the respective battles in the classes. But as we see Ayrton make his way into turn 3, it's Walker and Bingham that's the big spotlight moment right now. And can Walker hold on for a little bit longer as they make the way through the right-hander of turn number 4-5, which seems though, if anything right now, the Audi driver in the gold class of Ayrton is really struggling through those medium speed corners. That Audi just not wanting to respond the way he wants it in terms of how it was earlier on in the race. And as they make the way on through, coming charging on down towards turn number 10, you can see that Kevin String in the LMP2 class of SCCR Esports or Sim Sports closing up under braking into the corner behind the GT3 leaders, and he's got to get the hurry up because that is Mark Sykes behind, and you can see there also Nigel Stock not too far off as well. So the LMP2 leaders here, they're going to catch up into a battle. They do not want to get stuck behind, and for Stringer, can he find a way through? He's being held up now as they make the way through 13 to 14. 2.5 minutes to go, and they will have a couple more laps with it. But as he comes on through, when he goes deep, he can't find a way. But this means that Mark Sykes is incredibly close as we ride on board with the next generation orange driver. Now you can see all the GT3s staying to the LMP2s to give him the wave round on the right, and now Mark Sykes has to try and use this to his advantage. It's the closest he's been for some time versus Stringer. Coming on past the right of them, that is the LMDh and Jamie Dory in the silver class of the LMDHs. Sykes looks to move on the inside. Stringer goes as late as possible on the brakes. Stringer leaves the door open. Dory goes deep, and now they're going to have to deal with the BMW there, but the BMW goes off and brings it to the outside. Sykes backs off there, and Stringer holds the lead right now as they make the way up towards turn number 3. But Stringer right now really under huge pressure in terms of can he get a clear run for 2 more laps to be able to hold on and take this win in the sprint opener as they make the way through turns 4 and 5. Sykes falls back there in the dirty air, and we'd expect that to be fair given the run of the corner. But meanwhile, it's getting even closer behind us. A near off-track moment there for which Tom Bingham, who almost loses it coming out of turn number 5. They're really struggling right now in that dirty air, whether in the GT3 or the LMP2 class. Either way, and in the LMDHs it's even worse. They are feeling the pain, and I think passing now really will come down to a huge error being made by the driver in front. But we'll have to wait and see here. We've still got time to go, as meanwhile we look a little bit further back to Ben Bennyworth, who's under pressure. Or apologies, actually putting pressure on, we should say. What is that, Eric Benson, as they make the way in towards turn number 10. Running through, albeit this is a battle for P3 in both of what is the silver and the gold GT3 classes. But as they make the way through turn number 11, coming up the hill in towards turn 13, we're hearing that Jack Barker's had an instant on circuit. Unfortunately, we won't be cutting to that right now. Instead, we're going to be focusing on these battles all the way to the end. And meanwhile, we look back up to your LMP2 leader of Stringer here, and he is still only 7/10 clear of Mark Sykes behind. Looks up the inside there. Chatsicons, they make the way down into turn number 1, and as they come through, the right-hander Stringer there gets clear. Meanwhile, Mark Sykes finds himself stuck behind for a brief moment. Elmclov as they make the way up towards turn number 3, and that may just be it in terms of his ability to hunt down the LMP2 class win here in the sprint. Meanwhile, we see here at the top of the GT3s battling for overall GT3 position. Ayrton ahead of Wes Walker as they make the way through Coca-Cola for the last time. Meanwhile, in fact, this will not be the last time they go around, or will it? We'll just get clarification. In fact, it will not be the last time. They'll get one more lap after this, because the LMDh gold class is currently behind them at turn number 4, so they could find the LMDh has literally crossed the line with them. We'll have to wait and see how that happens. We may have one more lap here in this battle, we may not, but regardless, let's enjoy every moment of it. And right now, Ayrton under pressure from Walker. This is the GT3 overall lead. They're both the leaders in the gold and silver class respectively, as they make the way down into turn number 10 right now. It's not about class, it's about who wants it more to be the big name at the very top of the GT3 standing as they come on through turn number 11 up towards 12-13. Ayrton seems to have it hooked up right now, and looking behind there is your LMDh gold leader. That's how close he is. But as we look back to the GT3s, they will just about creep one more lap in. This is going to be so very close in terms of whether they get that extra lap. I think they will, as oh goodness me, and Bingham, they're almost going into the stratosphere by hitting that yellow curbing as they make their way down the start finish straight. And as they roll the way on down, Meanwhile, they go on to one more lap. The checker flag comes out, however, and Chris Daines will take the opening win of the season in the LMDh Gold class there. Congratulations to him. And Benjamin McCluskey finishes P2, 2.1 seconds back, and then it will be Gaz Williams who completes the LMDh Gold podium as they come through to complete their race. Then we have got a little bit of time before it will be William Foyle who comes across the line to take P4 in the class. And as he comes on through, it will then be Paul Williams, who is your LMDh Silver winner, as he comes to the line here in a very eventful race of the LMDh Silver class, with so many drivers losing out massively as he comes on through. And then very shortly, in fact in a little bit of time, and oh goodness me, we've got drama coming out of Dunlop in the LMP2 class. Kevin Stringer has had a spin, and Mark Sykes and Nigel Stock come on through. We're not quite sure what exactly has happened to Stringer, but it's gone wrong, and Mark Sykes will very shortly be coming on through, potentially to take the win in the LMP2 class. But before he does, we have Jochen Seeger coming to the line here to take P2 in the LMDh Silver class. As he makes his way to the line in traditional fashion, he comes on through. And then Mark Sykes will have done it. He takes the win in the LMP2 class at the very end, with Stringer having a rare mistake and not the mistake he wanted. And then we can see here is Nigel Stock P2 in the class, and Kevin Stringer will come on home P3. Meanwhile, in the GT3s, well, we can see here the GT3 leaders heading towards the line. It's Johan Ersson from Team Slimo just ahead of Ryan Walker. He will be your GT3 overall winner, and he'll also be your GT3 Gold winner ahead of GT3 Silver winner Ryan Walker at the line. And Tom Bingham in the end at P2 in the GT3 Silver class, P3 overall in the GT3s. And it'll be Russell Fowler who finished a lap down effectively, because the top three got onto one more lap before Fowler could finish his lap behind the LMDHs. And well, also we have to say congratulations to this man. We didn't see him cross the line given everything that was going on. Baz Meacham, the Welshman, the 511 we should say, the BMW M4 takes the GT3 bronze win ahead of Daniel Stimon and also Elwin Sykes, in an absolutely nail-biting conclusion to this sprint race. And what I do believe everybody has now completed the race, ladies and gentlemen. So let's take a look through those race results. So as our drivers make their way into the pit lane then in round number 1 of Season 2 of the Proto GT3 Championship, these are of course your sprint race results. In the end, Chris Daines bringing home the overall win there, and also the LMDh overall win and the LMD Gold class win by 2.1 seconds over Benjamin McCluskey. And then Gaz Williams completing the top 3 overall podium, and also the LMDh overall podium and the LMD Gold podium there. We can see Paul Williams will only do special mentions here for the overall standings. Paul Williams there, P5 in the LMDh Silver class there, taking the win for Speed 9 Esports ahead of Jochen Seeger in P8. The next special mention there, who took second place in the LMDh Silver class, and then it was Callum Jenkins, P12 overall, who took third place in the LMDh Silver class. But in between Seeger and Jenkins, well, it was the trio of LMP2s of Mark Sykes, Nigel Stott and Kevin Stringer. Mark Sykes P9 overall, taking the win in the LMP2 class. And as we continue to look on down the standings there, you can see P15, your GT3 overall winner ahead of Ryan Walker and Tom Bingham. It is Johan Ersson there for Team Slow-Mo, GT3 Gold winner, and also what is your GT3 overall winner ahead of Ryan Walker, your Silver GT3 winner, second place in the overall GT3 classification, and Tom Bingham in the end completing the GT3 overall podium, second place in the Silvers ahead of second place Gold driver Russell Fowler, and then Ben Bennyworth ahead of Eric Benson to take what was third place in the Silver class, and for Eric Benson third place in the Gold GT3 class. And then we can see there P22 Baz Meacham, your Bronze GT3 winner, P22 overall, and what for him was a brilliant run of form ahead of what was his second place counterpart of Daniel Stimon. And then he was in P24 for Rossum's Universal Robots, and then P27 overall on the grid, it was Elwin Sykes, the privateer there from South Africa for Racing Team Astra, bringing on home what was the third place in the bronze class. But we've talked a little bit about the individual class podiums. Let's bring up all those class results now, starting with the LMDh Gold drivers here. And we can see Chris Danes taking the win in the end by 2.1 seconds ahead of Gaz Williams. Ahead of Benjamin McCluskey, we should say, with Gaz Williams in P3. And the gap between them there, a near symmetrical, what was 2.6 seconds. And the top three, they're inseparable for the most part. But I think traffic in the end did the damage with regards to the close racing between them. And Danes, an unstoppable form, continuing off from where he left off in Season 1 of the Proto GT3 Championship. William Fold there in P4 ahead of Magna Yunland to complete the top 5, and then Craig Jones, the last of the finishers on the lead lap, with David Harney P7 there, a lap down. Coming on to the LMDh Silver class with our 4 drivers, we can see in the end Paul Williams for Speed 9 Esports taking the win by 33.5 seconds over Jochen Seeger in a class that was prone to instant left, right and centre, but Paul Williams, no instance for him. He kept it on the straight and narrow all the way through. Callum Jenkins finished a lap down in P3, and then Jamie drove for Next Gen Racing Orange, a lap down in P4. And then we come on to the LMP2 class, and we can see here as we continue on down through our classes, Mark Sykes, your winner by 4 seconds in the end over Nigel Stock for Next Gen Racing Orange, and the privateer of Nigel Stock holding a gap that was almost 6 seconds over Kevin Stringer, with the SCCR Sim Sports driver having that spin at Dunlop Corner on the final lap. Then coming on to the GT3 individual class classifications, we work our way into the lower speed class, but by no means least, and we see here in the GT3 Gold class there, Johan Ersson taking the win for Team Slow-Mo ahead of Russell Fowler, who finished technically a lap down, given the fact he wasn't able to get onto one more lap, with Ersson, Walker and Bingham, of course, the only GT3 drivers to do what was a 14th lap, but we can see there Fowler P2 and Eric Benson at P3, Team Slow-Mo locking out almost the top 5 there with Espresso, Rian, and also Magnus Birkecker, and then we can see Frederick Drury after taking the lead in qualifying, not able to bring it home. P6 for him in the end, and in P7, Ole Martin Mjörk ahead of Jack Barker and Stefan Vessels, not able to attend tonight, of course, Stefan Vessels, the privateer. And as we continue then into the GT3 Silver class, we can see the win for Ryan Walker by 1.4 seconds ahead of Tom Bingham, Performance Link Esports, and then Ben Bennyworth completing the silver podium ahead of Paul Scott, and then Stefan Albanese completing the top 5, Ollie Wayne P6, and Mark Harrismith having a difficult race in what was P7 there, 8 laps down. And then finally the GT3 Bronze class, we can see Baz Meacham taking the win by 10.1 seconds over Daniel Stimmen for what was the privateer outfit there for the Welshman, and the Rossums at Universal Robots driver holding off Elwin Sykes by a gap of 9 seconds, and Elwin Sykes completing the podium. Sean Scudder with those instants dropping to P4, 43 seconds off the leader. Eric Sveston there P5, almost a lap down but not quite, and the same for Artie Chatsacones. And then we can see Jordan Bebois, we should say, ahead of Ignar Alklov as they finished a lap down, the pair of them there, P7, P8. For those are the finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be back in approximately what will be 5 minutes or so for the build-up to the feature race. We'll be back shortly. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the continuation of round 1 of Season 2 of the Proto GT3 Championship hosted by NXTGEN Racing here today at the Fuji Speedway circuit in the Shizuoka Prefecture of Japan. And, well, whilst we are a little bit behind schedule, we are running about 15 minutes behind the anticipated schedule. We are almost set to go racing at once more for 60 minutes of racing action in the feature race. And as our drivers rejoin the iRacing lobby and get themselves set to go, well, let's tell you a little bit about what you can expect in the feature. Now, of course, as we mentioned earlier on, there is one mandatory pit stop, and our drivers will need to come into the pits for fuel at some point in the race. The fuel tanks they've been given, I mean, they cannot just simply lift and coast all the way through and potentially get to the end of the race unscathed on fuel capacity without pitting. They will be forced to pit at some point, or they'd have the fuel save so much they'd be so far off the pace, and they'd still have our race director disqualify them for not completing the pit stop. So therefore it all comes down to two key factors. Firstly, fuel saving. Can you save fuel behind your rivals? Do you really need to go and make an overtake, or can you opt to sit behind your rivals, do a little bit of lift and coasting, perhaps short shift as well on the straight? And that's going to be where we see a lot of potential fuel saving at the start for this straight, and also the run out of turn number 6 all the way down towards 10, and in doing so can you therefore shorten your time in the pits? But also secondly, when do you come in? Now, of course, the challenge with regards to choosing when to come in, there's the classic combination of do you go for what is the undercut, where you pit before all of your rivals and therefore you undercut their position on circuit by getting back out onto circuit in clear air and deliver the lap time, or do you alternatively go for the overcut, which is where you go as long as possible where all your rivals have pitted before you by comparison, and by holding track position and eventually steering clear of battling, you should be safe, you should be happy to be able to put the lap times in and come back out ahead of them, assuming your rivals in trying to undercut you have got into traffic, they've got into battling, or just have not been able to match your pace since returning to the circuit. So those are the conundrums which our drivers face, and they've got to do that in amongst also navigating all the traffic of the other classes as well. And what this means is that in terms of strategy, sometimes the best drivers in the world do not quite get it right, and we saw that over the course of Season 1, the best part of a year ago, and we may just see that again today. Indeed, some of our fastest drivers out there, they may nail the pit stop, they may get out there only to find themselves caught up in a battle they didn't expect, or stuck behind somebody who is not going to give them way of room in order to come on through, because they're battling for position and not wanting to lose track position in return. Because this is an opportunity with a reverse class grid also put in, whereby we'll see the grid line up in LMDh class ahead of LMP2s and then GT3s, and in the GT3s of course it will be the gold ahead of the silvers ahead of the bronze drivers, and in the LMDh class it will be the gold ahead of the silvers, but those individual classes will be reversed, with the lowest place finisher starting on pole, and meanwhile the winner of the class starting at the back of the class group. That means that drivers who had a difficult race, such as Jack Barker, the privateer here for Made for Racing, will find their way to potentially bring home a better result, because of course each race is worth a lot of points and equal point weighted across all the races, and therefore it's not about how well you do in one particular race, it's how well you do across all the races that truly matters, and our drivers will be looking to bounce back. Now, as we do look to hit Stimon as he makes his way and parks up there on the apex, and also to Ole Martin Murk as he makes his way up through turn number 14. We did see that Ryan Walker in the YouTube chat saying happy to take the GT3 Silver Class win in race 1. That was good fun, and what we did also say to him about their fantastic racing from Brian, and also we thought he was on course to potentially take the overall GT3 win, given the battling right at the end, as we see Walker making his way up the hill into Panasonic corner turn number 14. But in the end he said, attempted to put up a fight, but decided to be sensible since I was leading the Silver Class, and Tom Bingham was not too far behind. I think that was very sensible indeed. And we also say hello there to Benji Racing in the YouTube chat, saying my first race in multi-class racing on iRacing, that was scary but fun. I do believe that is Benjamin McCluskey there, and good evening to you, Benjamin, and looking forward to seeing how you get on in your next race, because you had a relatively good race number 1. We also see so many of you there, including Phil McDougall, we say hi to in the YouTube chat. So many of you joined the battling. Katie Eames there in the Facebook chat saying cracking opening race. Well, we're now hoping to have an even better feature race, if we can say that, to be fair. Can we describe the feature as being a better race than the sprint, given the intensity? Well, I don't think we can quite describe it through adjectives here. I think it's going to be described by the roar of engines, whether it be the V8 hybrid of the BMW, indeed the Dallara engines, or alternatively the GT3s. Let's go to the grid. So they will line up as follows then for our second race of the day. It will be starting the LMDH's David Harney, who takes reverse grid overall pole, the privateer, with Craig Jones alongside him on his P2 there on that front row. Then it'll be Magna Jernland from Team Slow-Mo Black, joined by William Foyle on the second row, with on the third row Gaz Williams, so NXTGEN Racing Purple, joined by Benjamin McCluskey, and then Chris Danger, winner in the LMDh Gold class, will start last but not least P7 there in the LMDh Gold. Then we come onto the second class, the LMDh Silvers, and it will be Jamie Dory there, who takes the reverse grid pole position, position, with Callum Jenkins and Jochen Siegert. They're lined up together on row number 5, and it'll be Paul Williams who completes the LMDh Silvers and is joined on the 6th row, albeit they'll split as they get underway by what is your pole sitter in the LMP2 class of Kevin Stringer. Of course, Stringer having that difficult end to his race and will be looking to redeem himself in the feature. On row number 7, it's the pair of Nigel Stock and Mark Sykes. We will then come on to the GT3s, and Jack Barker will be your reverse grid pole sitter there, starting P15 on the 8th row with Ole Martin and Mjörk alongside him. Then we have Frederick Drury and what is Magnus Berkircher there on the 9th row as our field is starting to pull away now, and it'll be Espresso Rien and Eric Benson on the 10th row, followed by Russell Fowler and Johan Earson on the 11th row. Then the GT3 stills will be Mark Arrowsmith and Ollie Wayne on row number 12, followed up by the combination of row 13 of Stefan Albanese and Paul Scott, and then Ben Bennyworth and Tom Bingham on row 14, and Ryan Walker to complete on row 15, joined by bronze pole sitter Ingar Alpklov. And then we do have on row number 16 Jordan Bebois and RT Chatsikons, followed by on what is there on row 17 Eric Svesten and Sean Scooter, Elwyn Sykes and Daniel Simon on row number 18. And then coming on to our final row, but there's no more rows. That's how they'll all line up, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for us to go racing, and we wait now for David Harney to take us away for 60 minutes of racing action here in the feature at Fuji. Now our driver's staying very close to the pace car at the moment, and I think right now Harney trying to get the field to back off a little bit from the pace car, but he'll control the pace once the pace car does come on in. Goes as it goes green for race number 2 here today, and Harney gets a slow start, but look at Jones meanwhile immediately on the offensive, and William Fole there tries to look around the outside, he can't quite find it. Meanwhile they all top and tail over the top of one another as they come into turn number 1 in the LMDHs, and as they make the one through there, Jamie Dory Freewood, Benjamin McCluskey and Callum Jenkins, but McCluskey goes to the middle of them and makes sure to part the seas as they cart towards turn number 3, immediately hit, it's all roar and score, as meanwhile Dory there backs out and backs off and holds up Callum Jenkins in return. Meanwhile in the LMP2s we can see already Kevin Stringer getting the jump on both Mark Sykes and Nigel Stock, but Sykes right there with him as they make the way on down and around, and as they come roaring on through in the GT3s, it is only Martin Mjörk who's ahead of Jack Barker after turns 1 through to 3, but right now as they make the way up through 4, 5 and 6, this is going to be for the long haul here, and it's not about those early starts, it's about how you manage it all the way through, as we see Russell Fowler there almost going a bit wide on cold tyres in the Mercedes of Performance Link Esports, but he battles side by side almost with Benson now as they make the way on through turn 6 and 7 and down towards 10, side by side they go. Can he find his way on through here, or will he have the back off as he makes his way into the braking zone? He'll be on the outside, I don't think he's going to find his way on through. He's going to be very bold if he's going to go for it. He's going to force the issue, but in the end he only loses out as we see Stefan Albanese, your silver leader, tucked in behind and trying to look up the inside here, and Albanese wants to get a move on, and I think in fact that's really cost Benson, as meanwhile we've got a major instant there between Callum Jenkins and Magna Jernland, and the two of them have come together in the different LMDh classes, and that's at the exit of turn number 14 as Jernland gets back onto the circuit. It's drama for them. Meanwhile we look back to the GT3s, and Sean Scudder with a great start, as meanwhile behind it's 3 wide as they come through turn number 14, and that there's Baz Beach and Ben Bennyworth making the way through. We've got a car around, however, and I think that's Paul Scott who's gone for a spin in the Audi, and as he rejoins, we've got a car pointing the wrong way, and that's Ingar Alkov who's just turned it around at turn number 14 and gets his way back up to speed. Nigel Stock's into the pit lane, I believe, with damage in the LMP2 class. I look out my content booth window, but so many drivers having a dramatic start to their race, and we're trying to piece it all together as they make the way on around. But definitely they were right at the end of that opening lap. The GT3's coming together, and also some LMDHs. There's a bit of a story that we're trying to find out specifics about very shortly. But meanwhile, as we go on to our second lap here, 2 minutes in, we can see William Foyle right now, after what was a blistering attempt at a start, has fallen a long way back in the LMDH class in both gold and overall, as right now behind him there is what is the silver driver of Jochen Siegert, who looks to try and make the move on him, but Foyle holds to at bay as he heads up towards turn number 11 and 12 and 13 in quick sequence. And as they come out of 13 right now, Paul Williams just in front there, as meanwhile Gaz Williams battling up the inside, in fact the outside there of David Harney, who defends well at Panasonic corner, but now it's all about the run down the start finish straight. And for Harney here, will be right on board the gearbox, and Gaz Williams looks small at the moment. He looks like an ant, but I can assure you by the end of this straight he's going to be anything but that. He'll be very close and not alongside as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Of course, this is where Williams has to make a call. Is he faster or does he lift and coast and back off? He backs off there, makes Harney go defensive in fact, and as they make the way through the hairpin, I think Williams there just simply wanted him to return to the racing line, but Harney says no, and instead starts to defend as they make the way through 2 and up towards 3. But as they come through the left hand and now down towards turn number 4, they go very shortly. What you can see here, they're caught up behind a little bit of GT3 traffic that's been in the instance at the very start, including Ben Bennyworth. Meanwhile, in the gold class here, we've got a swap between the 2 team slow-mo drivers here coming up. One of the looks of things with what is Espresso Rian and Eric Benson on his inside. Benson goes onto the brakes here, looks at the move, there's contact between the 2 of them, and you can see that Rian turns on him, but he finds a faceful with his fellow slow-mo counterpart as they come out of turn 1. And of course, whilst they're racing all as part of one big conglomerate team slow-mo, there are 3 team slow-mo teams here today. There's team slow-mo base, there's lots of team slow-mo black, and also team slow-mo leftovers, and they're all competing in their respective teams championship. But as they come on through, they all want to score big points. Meanwhile, we look to the LMP2 class, and Kevin Stringer here under pressure from Mark Sykes as they make the way through at turn number 12 into 13. And as they come up the hill, Sykes thinks about it, but backs out there as they make the way through the left-hander in next bend. And then up towards turn at number 14, into the right-hander they go, and right now the Englishman, the 666 car, looking to do everything to pile on the pressure early on, and well, whilst he's trying to put the pressure on at the start-finish straight, at the very end of it, Craig Jones on the right of your picture under pressure, from which Jamie Dory though creeps up the inside, and the LMDh silver leader overdoes it under braking, and well, we can see there, Gaz Williams up the inside of David Harney. Meanwhile, we look a bit further back to the LMP2s, they've still got a bit of straight way to go, that's how long that straight is of course, and as they make the way down towards turn 1, Kevin Stringer fends off Mark Sykes for now, but for how long can he keep Sykes at bay? And of course the challenge for Stringer is in the number 9 car, is right now he's pushing as much as he can. Is Mark Sykes going to be doing fuel saving and potentially looking to make that pit stop undercut, or at least having a shorter pit stop? Either way he cuts it. Meanwhile, looking back here to the slow-mo drivers in the GT3 Gold class, Rian on what is there, the left of your picture versus Benson on the right of your picture, and as they make the way onto the anchors here, well, neither driver wants to give in. They're both battling for position as hard as they possibly can. Onto the brakes they come. Meanwhile, Stefan Albanese looks at this and says, okay, if you guys are going to squabble over it, I might try and sneak up the inside. But then he backs out of it there, recognised I think it would be a bit too close for comfort, as meanwhile Jack Barker here chasing after what is their Duray as they make the way down through 4 and into 5, and we ride on board with the ILD driver in the Made for Racing privateer machine. Now coming on through here, of course, after a difficult race number 1 with a number of spins towards the end, this time really focusing, I think, on just trying to maintain that pace and hold that position, of course, with what is there, Frederick Stentor-Dury making his way down towards turn number 10 and seemingly breaking away. I think right now Barker's more focusing on just staying there, trying to observe some of the lines and making sure he doesn't make an error at turn 12 like he did last time, which cost him so very dearly. But a good start for him, only losing 2 places at the start, still plenty of time to go, but he has got there. What is it, Birkicker, as they make the way out of turn number 11 in towards 13 they go, and the team slow-mo leftovers driver here definitely looking to pile on the pressure as they head through the left-hander there and down towards up towards what we should say is turn number 14. But as they come on through, we are hearing that Sean Scooter has had an incident of some description. He's had to enter the pit lane in fact, and well, he's currently being serviced in the pit lane I believe for damage, and he's making his way back on out at the moment. As he comes on through, well, we will have our GT3 leaders coming on down, and Bark here under pressure from Birkicker as they make the way in towards turn number 1 they go, side by side here, and Barker's not going to battle this too hard. I think he's focused more on the strategy. But meanwhile, speaking of battles further back, it's 3 wide of Albanese, your silver GT3 leader on the inside of both what is Earson and also Benson. They come on through, and Benson and Earson both battling for position. Albanese meanwhile tries to steer clear of him, but they all survive. But Albanese can't make the move as they make the way up towards turn number 3, and as they come into left-hander Coca-Cola right now, they stay as they were. That's still plenty to go, and well, the challenge is on for all of them as they make the way on around. Now if you're wondering what exactly happened to Sean Scooter earlier on from the lead of the GT3 bronze class, we believe this is what may have happened. coming down into turn number 10. The rear of the car snaps loose and then counter steer, kicks it the other way and oversteers to the tyre barrier, and that's why the privateer from Racing Team Astra was in the pits to repair what was a damaged suspension on the front of that BMW M4. A difficult one for Scooter there, not a happy day of racing for him as we return to the live pictures here, and a good timing as well because Stefan Albanese up the inside of Johan Ersson. And remember, of course, Ersson, your winner in the GT3 Gold Class last time out in the sprint, but right now really finds himself in a bit of a fumble with regards to battling with the GT3 Silver leader, and this is costing him time. And indeed, when time is being lost, there's not that much time. It's 60 minutes of racing. It'll feel like forever, but it's not forever, we can definitely tell you that, as they make their way down the start-finish straight. And now the question will be, does he try and counter-attack or does he go for the fuel saving? But as they make the way up towards turn number 1, once again, we do continue to watch here the two Audis going toe-to-toe for a brief while. As we see there, Chris Dane's an earlier picture in the LMDh car coming through, and now Albanese with the task here of figuring out what he wants to do versus Ersson, who goes up the inside. Meanwhile, Nigel Stock there with a difficult start to his race, having had to come into the pit to repair work on the car. The privateer in the LMP2 wants to cut on past these GT3s. He's got a race to get on with here, and who can blame him as he comes from the inside into Coca-Cola. But meanwhile, speaking of LMDHs here, we've got a battle building as Craig Jones there, and what looks to be Gaz Williams coming extremely hot under braking. Williams overdoes it, however, and Craig Jones retakes P3 in what is the LMDh Gold Class as they make the way out towards turn number 3. The racing never stops for these guys, and the thing is, of course, right now they are all vying for position, and that is the run of what is P3 through to P5 in the LMDh Gold Class, followed up by the battle of the P2 in the LMDh Silver Class, which has been contested between Paul Williams and there you can see his teammate on the inside there. And was it just a switch of position for Speed 9 Esports? I think it may have been there, given the fact that Williams getting a bit off the throttle on corner X, and I think giving some space to his teammate and saying to him, okay, if you've got this, go for it. And as they make the way into turn number 10 right now, trying to stay clear, but it looks as though there, Seeger almost losing the car. William Foyle carries on through, but Seeger with a very, very near miss there, coming on through the corner. We also had a driver off. That is a Mercedes, a GT3 Mercedes of what is Stimmen, as they make the way into turn number 13 as they come on through the left-hander. Well, they're all tripping up over one another already. Plus instance there, of course, is always Elwyn Sykes in the Racing Team Astra BMW M4 trying to stay clear. He's running P8 in what is the GT3 Bronze Class as well. And as they make the way onto the start-finish straight here, well, remember, they still got another 50 minutes to this, and anything can happen. As meanwhile, we take a little bit of a look further up what is the GT3 order, albeit a bit further down the overall order, to Eric Benson here, who continues to have difficulty in trying to hunt down Espresso Rian as they make the way up towards turn number 3. But as they come on through, once again, we're hearing off camera a change of position between Paul Williams and Jochen Seeger, but meanwhile, Tom Bingham here continues to make ground as they make the way, but he loses the rear of the car coming out of turn number 3 into 4. And I think there that may have been just we tried to rejoin the full tarmac surface and the car goes for a spin, but for Bingham now that was not the way he wanted it to go whatsoever. And in fact, we try to ride on board very shortly and get a perspective of what happened for Tom Bingham, as we will be getting a replay of that to find out, but not the way he wanted that to go at all. In fact, we take a look back here at what happened to Tom Bingham only moments ago, riding on board from the cockpit, so past there by what was Johan Ersson as they made their way in the run down towards 3. Ersson is right, cuts back across here, does Bingham onto the racing line. Now through Coca-Cola they go, and let's listen in. Runs a bit wide, and that was enough to catch the car out there. You can see we tried to return the car there, bumping on the road. We had that depression in the exit curve of turn number 3, and it just caught the rear of the car, bounced it out of control, and then Bingham, as he tried to get the power down, the car just simply started to pull one way then the other, and in the end it was a brief bump to the rear of the car to the wall as he brings it up to speed now. But it's cost him quite dear as we've returned to the live pictures here. Well, I don't think he's going to have enough damage on the car to decide to come in for body work, but he might be thinking about whether those rear tyres and those front tyres as well have got a bit of a flat spot on them, given the fact that he did slide for quite a while, but fortunately it was mostly on grass to slide as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. Right now, head down, it carries on. Indeed, the same goes for all of our other drivers. And well, here's Kevin Stringer here under pressure from what is there Callum Jenkins, albeit Jenkins in the LMDh, Stringer leading in the LMP2. And as they make their way for the right-hander at turn number 1, well, neither one of them wants to give way right now. And you would imagine that Jenkins will eventually jump on through. Mark Sykes 2 seconds off of Stringer in the battle for the lead of the LMP2 class here. A bit further back, but staying on as they make the way in towards turn number 3. They come rolling through the left-hander, and as they make the way down down through 4 and into 5. We do look from them back up to the battle for P3 in the LMDh class between Craig Jones and what is there, Gaz Williams behind him. Williams trying to stay as close as possible to the SCCR Sim Sports driver as they make the way through turn number 13 up towards 14. But you can see here right now, Gaz Williams close, but every time he gets this close, it's the run to turn number 1, and he has the run to the inside, of course, with the overspeed from the slipstream, but he just seems not to be able to find a way to get the car to stop in time, and that is what is costing him so dearly as we hear that Paul Scott's into the pit lane for what we believe is a bit of repair work on the car. But as they make the way down towards turn number 1 this time, Gaz Williams a bit further back here. I think Williams might be lifting and coasting here. He may now be thinking about the longer term approach to this race, which is right, if I can't get it done in the run to 1, which seems to be the only place he can get close enough at the moment, and that's not to besmirch his reputation, but that's how close these two are, that he's going to do it the long way, which is through fuel saving and strategy. But as they make the way into Coca-Cola here, of course the dirty air now really confounding the front of Williams' car. Craig Jones, to be fair, also does have the dirty air of Jamie Dory just in front of him as they make the way through the rise, coming out of 5 and into 6. But meanwhile, we've got a bit of an instant further back here between Johan Ersson and also Stefan Albanese. Well, I believe we have, well, Albanese definitely had an off track, but our system's telling us that the two of them had a bit of a coming together, and what exactly happened, well, we'll find out very shortly. In fact, we've got a replay coming up. Well, this is in the run down towards turn 1. Now, we look from the perspective of Ersson as the focus of our cameraman's attention. Onto the brakes they went. Audi driver at the back. Albanese loses the rear of the car. And Ersson there, he literally tried to go on the inside. But Albanese in a car that was never going to stop. No matter what he did, he probably had the brakes on there to make sure the car didn't slide any further. But in the end, I think Ersson just simply looking to go on the wrong side of the wayward Italian's car. But still, bringing it back together, the privateer. And the little bump between the two of them will not be too much to compromise their race. Albeit Albanese will have lost at least a good 6 seconds of race time as a result of that incident. But as we return to live pictures now, still plenty to go and still plenty of points to play for, and rises with it as the drivers make the way on around him. One driver who, after a very difficult run in the sprint race, of course, spinning from the lead on cold tyres at NXTGEN. Right now, we do look to second place in the GT3 Gold class, chasing down Ole Martin Mjörk. And right now, the team slow-mo driver here, 2 seconds of his fellow teammate, albeit separated by Paul Scott in the GT3 Silver class, who is a lap down, and Paul Scott will not be battling this too hard. Right now, Frederick Stensboll Dure is trying to chase down his teammate of Mjörk, and he's closing at a good rate of knots, taking 2 attempts out on the start finish straight there, but he's still got plenty more to go in terms of bringing that gap on down as they make their way onto another lap. Now for our GT3s, they've just gone on to their 10th lap under race conditions. Meanwhile for LMDHs, they're on lap number 11 already, so we are going to see that overlay of the different classes continue and become more and more erratic as the classes become spread out amongst one another, and then you factor in how the traffic lays over each of the classes in return. But meanwhile, as they make the way on through, you can definitely see that Dure continuing to push on here and not letting the difficulties of race number 1 hold him back here in the feature. But behind him, of course, is Magnus Verkicker as they make the way in towards turn number 10. And as the Team Slow-Mo leftovers driver here heads up towards the right-hander in the 22 car, well, Team Slow-Mo definitely looking very strong in the GT3 Gold class right now and continue to run that pace as best they possibly can. But as they come on out here, we look to your GT3 bronze leader, Baz Meacham, chasing after Ollie Wayne here, and Meacham really just not putting a foot wrong, gaining a lot of ground since the start of this race and just coming through strong. And the challenge for the 511 driver here is about finding this traffic in front of him, because he only does have a 4.3 second gap to what is Bevois behind in P2 in the bronze class, as we do hear that Jordan Bevois right now closing gradually in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo as they make the way up towards turn number 14 and doing everything he can, the Frenchman, to try and bring home a win here in this feature. As he makes his way out the Panasonic corner, you can see the distance between himself and what is Meacham up the road. And well, for now, I think he's just got to focus on delivering lap after lap and not a mistake between him and the next one. But as he comes on down here, we do look to the run into turn number 1, and that is Ryan Walker there, silver leader at the moment. He's really taken the silver lead very early on in this race, come through the field very quickly. In fact, we didn't quite catch all the story there, but the number 97 driver has found his way into lead of the class, and as he makes his way into turn number 3, behind there we do see Rian having a little bit of pressure from Ersson, who goes up his inside there into Coca-Cola corner, gets it done. And with the two Team Slow-Mo drivers exchanging places once again, like this exchanging stocks on the share market right now, with regards to the fact that 1 minute it is Rian ahead, then the next minute it is Ersson, and back and forth. But Ryan Walker definitely clearing the pair of them as we look at the silver leader making his way through at 300R and down towards turn number 10. But as he comes on down here, of course, the pace of the race starting to calm down to a little bit more of a strategic race. We haven't got too many drivers close together at the moment, although I say that, I do believe that it's just been a pass by what is Craig Jones and Jamie Dory, but Jamie Dory comes back on the outside, and as they make the way on through turn number 3, this is battling for overall position, but look at Gaz Williams, he capitalises on the situation, they make the way up the hill, and Williams finally gets his wish, which is to find a way past Craig Jones, but for how long will it last as they make the way on down towards turn number 10 and coming on down, making the way all the way up towards the right-hander of Dunlop here, and Williams I think has done enough for the time being. Of course, the change for him is how long will he be able to open that gap up forward, given the fact they've got the long start finish straight coming up, and also he's got the toe there of Jamie Dory, his fellow Next Gen Racing driver in front of him. But the problem there is you can see how already Williams has to take slightly different lines as Dory almost goes a little bit too wide on the exit next bend. Williams there coming on in the rear, almost stepping out, and he'll have the draft of Dory in return. Jones will have the draft of the pair of them, and it's going to free a freeway drag race all the way down towards turn number 1. But I think here they may all just cancel one another out, minus Dory of course, because he's got nobody to give him the toe. Now will Williams use this as an advantage to jump ahead of the LMDh silver leader? He looks for it here, Dory's aware of it, and Williams goes up the inside. I think Dory's going to try and let this go. I think Williams now will be hoping that Dory does not make it as straightforward perhaps for Jones behind, or alternatively just that Jones will take the next lap in order to get on past, and that will buy Gaz Williams a bit of time. Meanwhile at the front of the field we can see here Chris Danes leading in the LMDh gold class. He makes his way around and battling there with Benjamin McCluskey and trying to hold on as they make the way through turn number 10 and up towards 11 they go, and Will Danes absolutely flying here, the privateer, as he makes his way on through what is turn number 12 into 13, and will, after taking the lead of the race off of his rivals on lap number 2, he's not looked back since then, has the Danishman as he comes on through. Benjamin McCluskey there up the inside of Ollie Wayne, and well, right now McCluskey's got something to say about all this, which is it's not just the Chris Danes show as they make the way down the start finish straight, but the Verona Motorsport driver definitely flying as fast as he can right now and trying to break away. But can McCluskey find a way on back? They're separated by 3 tenths and a run down towards 1, but as they make the way all the way towards the braking zone here, I think Danes will feel as though he's safe this time. McCluskey looks for under braking, but he's fine wanting as he makes his way on through. Can't quite get close enough at this time. Now we have had something pointed out to us in the YouTube chat by Stefan Vessel saying Albanese spun out of the silver lead. Indeed, with Ryan Walker there now leading in the silver class, and Albanese dropping back to P3, and we'll try and find out exactly how it happened for Stefan Albanese. In fact, it happened on his 9th lap of the circuit, and well, we're going to stay with this battle for the LMDh lead for a little bit longer, and then we will be taking a look at what exactly happened to our silver GT3 driver Stefan Albanese on what was a lap only 3 laps ago. But right now, as we look to McCluskey here chasing on and after Danes, well, with the traffic that's coming in here, they're finding the traffic on the straights for both drivers here, so no real separation between the two of them as they make the way up towards 11. I think McCluskey, well, in fact, it's a bit of an issue here for Danes. He's got traffic in front of him, and will Jack Barker in the GT3 there's just going to hold his line as they make the way up into next bend, and McCluskey's got to capitalise on this. He's got to get himself set for the run of 14. They both look into turn number 14 here. Danes on a very tight line. McCluskey gets more of a line, and this is the chance. He's got to get his foot down here. He gets a bit of wheel spin out as he comes out the corner. Danes nails corner exit as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Full throttle they go here, and once again I think it's going to be equilibrium all the way. But as they make the way up into top gear, very shortly you can see Danes is now being reeled in. He's used a bit of the power deployment at the start. As they get ready for the braking zone, McCluskey thinks about it. He really does tease it out, but he can't find it. Goes a bit deep, and I think that may be the opportunity gone for the time being as he gets himself back up to speed on the exit of 1. That's so close as they make the way on down towards turn number 3 right now. But McCluskey coming on through, and as they make the way on through and down towards turns 4 and 5, rolling the one through. Well, we can look a little bit further down the order here too. In fact, we won't quite cut to that just yet. What's happening further down the way, McCluskey getting another opportunity, in fact, with Danes once again finding traffic in the worst possible place imaginable, which is into the braking zone of quite a tight apex at turn 6 hairpin as they make the way on down and into the braking zone for turn number 10. On the brakes, so we see Matt Emmons in the Facebook chat, fellow Verona Motorsport driver saying, come on Chris, Verona Motorsport fans definitely in action in the YouTube and the Facebook chats right now, all egging on their drivers. They make the way up towards next bend once again. Meanwhile, further back, we look to Ollie Wayne here in a brief intermission in the GT3 Silver class, P24 overall, and as he makes his way up towards turn number 10 in the charge, and behind him is Stefan Albanese, who had that spin early on. Of course, we actually did bring you a replay of it early on. Indeed, I'm getting a little bit forgetful in my old age, and thankfully for Stefan Vessels reminding us there that we did show it on the replay. But right now, Albanese trying to come on back, and also looking a little bit further back there in P3 in the bronze class, chasing after Bevois is there Daniel Stimon. As we see here, the Rossum's Universal Robots driver here, currently a margin of what is to Bevois of 5.5 seconds, but still running a very strong P3 in class right now is the Mercedes driver, and keeping it nice and sweet. And we do see there Pavel V continue to cheer on the Czech driver as he makes his way out to turn number 14. But as he comes onto the start finish straight, we look back to Wayne versus Albanese, and this is going to be the roar of the Mercedes versus the delicacy of the Audi. Of course, it's the 6.2 litre V8 of the Mercedes versus the V10 of the Audi. As they make the way into the braking zone here, we expect the Mercedes will have the legs on the straights and the acceleration, but the Audi has so much to play with in the corners. It's the difference of drivetrains. Of course, front engine rear wheel drive for the privateer of Ollie Wayne and the Mercedes, mid engine rear wheel drive for the privateer of Albanese, behind in the Audi racing for DRS Esports. And as they make the way through turn 4 and into 5 here, the two drivers right now neck and neck with the LMDh is going around the outside of them. And right now, if you're a keen sim racing photographer, well, you definitely want a picture of that. And you can see Wayne goes deep there in the draft of Wes Harney, and now Albanese will have the run, but has he got the legs? No, he's not, as they made the way through 100 at 300R, heading down towards turn number 10 in the run. Onto the brakes they go, but Wayne definitely now knows he can't make a mistake, as there's a lock up there for what is Jochen Seeger, who locks it up through Dunlop and brings it back on behind the GT3 drivers. He'll look to come through very shortly, as we do have Tom Bingham into the pit. So look at my commentary booth window, he's decided to come in on strategy now, and he'll drop down the order to a degree. He's already leaving the pit lane now, and therefore he's going for the ultimate undercut. 24 minutes in. Wayne here trying to find his way past Wes Rien, and there's a bit of a moment there for Wayne. I think they're just having to slow the car. The door was open, but in the end the door was going to shut, and Wayne loses the rear of the car, and the Briton loses out. As we see here, Bevois making their way down towards turn number 1, and well, now in P2 in the bronze class, and clearing all the GT3 traffic that lay ahead of him, given the fact that Wayne's just gone on around. But meanwhile, as he heads on down towards there, we come back to the battle a bit further up the field, and this is between what is Gaz Williams and Jamie Dory. They're battling for P3 overall in the LMDHs, with Williams the gold LMDh driver, Dory the silver driver, but these two showing no signs of stopping the fighting between each other, and both wanting to hold on to that P3 position. And then let's not forget about the fact you still have this battle for the overall LMDh lead and the LMDh gold lead at that, between what is Chris Daines, the privateer Verana Motorsport, ahead of Benjamin McCluskey in the Next Gen Racing Machine, as they make their way down the start finish straight. And these two have got nothing between them. Lap after lap, they are within 1,000 of each other every time. And as they make their way down, Daines has to defend it. And meanwhile, McCluskey here tries to go around the outside. Well, Daines there is going to make sure that McCluskey feels the run of the outside as they make their way out the corner. But you could just see how Daines right now under so much pressure. But then again, we don't know if Daines is perhaps trying to do some fuel saving here and not using all the car right now, and perhaps thinking to himself, you know what, I'll make McCluskey use all the fuel up, use all his tyres up, and then I get essentially a free pass in the pit lane. But either way you cut it right now, Daines is playing it on the strategy. This is a very bold way to do it. I think he's got his head down, and right now he's under a huge amount of pressure from McCluskey, because McCluskey was fast in the sprint. He wasn't quite on the pace of Daines at the end, but for the first 15 minutes, he definitely had race leading pace. And as they come through Dunlop here, it's one mistake that could be all the difference between these two. And remember, they've yet to pit as well. A pit stop could also be the difference there in terms of who's leading going into the second stint, as they find a bit more traffic coming up into Nets Bend. And you can see that Elwin Sykes stays clear. He sees the yellow flags, he sees the LMDHs coming on through, and he stays over to the right as they make the way up towards turn number 14. Now coming on through and towards the end of the current lap, it's going to be a charge on through, and this time Daines a little bit clearer by almost 5 tenths compared to last time with it 3 tenths. And we look a little bit further down the order to the GT3s. And Worth Team of Slow-Mo are looking for a photo opportunity there with all 3 cars in the picture. They've got one, as we see here, Ole Martin Mjörk chasing down what is Bukeka, his teammate and albeit rival Magnus Fulton Bukeka, as they make the way in towards turn number 11. Into the right hander they go, and well, the two of them right now not quite able to close up to GT3 gold leader from Team Slow-Mo of Fredrikstad Ball 3 as he makes his way down towards turn number 14. But as he comes roaring on through, meanwhile one driver who's definitely trying to make ground in the GT3s, well, it is none other than Eric Benson here, who's trying to chase after Johan Ersson, as they make the way up towards turn number 14. But as they head up the hill, and we do look now back to the LMDHs, we look to William Foyle, who is battling there with Craig Jones. In fact, just finding the move on Craig Jones as they make their way down towards turn number 3. How exactly did that pass get made, I hear you ask, when we take a look back? Well, this was only moments ago in the run to turn number 1, battling for P4 in the LMDh cars. Foyle cuts up the inside there on the brakes and just gets it stopped. I think only micrometers away from what was a lock-up there on the front brake. And as they make the way up towards turn number 3, Jones tried to come back into Coca-Cola, but then decided against it there, given the fact he wasn't fully alongside, and it could have been tantamount to disaster there if two went into one at that angle. But still, Jones playing it smart. Both drivers there knowing where the limits are, and as we hit the 28th minute complete, well, we've got a lot of GT3s in the pit lane right now, including your GT3 silver leader of Ryan Walker. Also, you've got your GT3 bronze leader of Baz Meacham. You can see that on the timing tower, and now the strategies are starting to unfold. As we can see, it's pit stop season right now. There's so much going on down there. You think they just arrived at the circuit, but as they all bring it in and continue to do their strategy, who will gain from all this, of course? Well, we see here Frederick Svensvold-Duroy making his way down towards turn number 1, and well, currently P3 in cars, but he is, as we understand it, the leading GT3 driver who has taken a pit stop, so he's effectively your GT3 overall leader on strategy. Meanwhile, McCluskey has taken the lead of the LMDHs and overall ahead of Chris Daines. How did that happen off camera? Well, thankfully, we've got a replay. As Chris Daines was making a mistake coming out of turn number 10, into 6 they went, and Daines went a bit deep, and well, kept the car pointing straight, but McCluskey up the inside, and as they made the way down towards what was turn number 10, I think Daines there in the dirty air, just washing out a little bit on that front end as he made his way down. What we mean by washing out there is where the car just simply does not want to turn, goes a bit deep but brings it back on safely. But with that understeer invoked by the loss of front end downforce, we return to live pictures right now. Daines battling side by side with McCluskey once again. These two are just not letting one another go whatsoever. McCluskey there, well, he stays on the centre of the road, and Daines immediately cuts across here to defend. McCluskey follows him, left, right, and as they make the way down towards turn number 1, McCluskey returns to the inside under braking. Daines outbrakes him, but McCluskey holds the inside of the hairpin. Now as they make the way side by side all the way towards turn number 3, will Daines back out here? Will he decide not to make it too wide? No, he goes in. They'll go into Coca-Cola together. McCluskey there on the outside carries the speed on around. Meanwhile, Daines tucks back in behind, but Benjamin McCluskey right now is giving no quarter. But to be fair, it's such respectful racing between the two of them as they make their way into the turn 6 hairpin. You love to see it, as the Next Gen Racing purple driver right now is only 1 or 2 corners away from potential counter-attack from the Runner Motorsport driver as they make their way down towards turn number 10. Now as they come charging on down at this point, it's been the closest battle on the circuit overall and in class, and as they come up towards turn number 11, we're still waiting to know exactly when they're going to come into the pits, of course, and that I think is going to have a huge bearing on how this race plays out between the two of them. And of course, right now, none of our LMDHs inside the top 9, all the way down to Magna Yonland in P9 overall, in what is P7 in the LMDh Gold class, have actually come into the pits yet. And your leading LMDh driver who's come into the pits is your LMD Silver third place driver, Jochen Seeger. And as they make the way down towards turn number 1, our leaders, we look here to the LMP2 class. We haven't forgotten about them. Mark Sykes up the inside there, Kevin String, and these two are battling for the lead with Nigel Stock having come into the pits very early on. We believe that Nigel Stock will have to take another pit stop at some point, and as they make the way in towards turn number 3, Mark Sykes gets the move done there on Stringer into turn 1 and holds it for now. But I think again, given the fact they've already pitted once, I think both drivers here will be trying to play the long game and focusing on doing what they can in order to make sure that fuel tank goes in, because they might be critically low on fuel when they get towards the final 10 minutes, which is what we did see, of course, in the Proto GT3 Championship Season 1, which other LMP2 drivers had to make 2 stops in the 60-minute features. But Sykes makes his way on down there past what is Almclovis. They made their way in towards turn number 10 once again. We see a little bit further back on the order of the battle for what is the lead of the GT3 Gold Class here between the Team Slow-Mo drivers. You've got Team Slow-Mo leftovers there of Birkeka versus what is Drury as they make their way down towards turn number 1. And as they come through, there's a lock-up behind, and I believe that is David Harney getting it all wrong just behind them there. And Harney with a lock-up under brake in the privateer, and I believe David Harney in fact running for in those colours. I think he might be, in fact he is a slow-mo driver there but not registered to a team. We'll have to double check that after today's broadcast. I think he might actually be part of the team, to be fair, but getting it a bit wrong there, David Harney, and that lock-up cost him dear. But as he makes his way down through 4 and 5, coming up towards turn number 6 right now, that lock-up will really have hurt the tyres. Meanwhile, Mark Sykes versus Kevin Stringer. Stringer back on the inside this time in the battle of what we believe is the effective lead of the LMP2 class. P2 in class currently with Nigel Stott leading the class by 7 seconds. Well, 7.5 seconds to be a bit more precise, but there's Stringer back ahead in a return move, literally repeating what Sykes did to him only a lap ago. And these two are not letting one another have any breathing room. It's much like McCluskey and Danes at the front of the field in the LMDhs. It's going to go down to the wire between these guys as they make the way into the turn 6 hairpin. Now coming on through, we have had a couple of other incidents on circuit, including Ole Martin Mjörk having a moment only moments ago on what was his 19th lap of the circuit, and we take a look back at what exactly happened. Well, this was in the run through the final sector. Into turn 11 he went. Car looked okay at first. Up into 12 and next bend. And the rear of the car starts stepping out. And in the end, it lets go there in the uphill rise. And, well, not working out for the Norwegian. But he brings it back to the circuit. And that cost him quite a bit of time in this race. Still P3 in the GT3 Gold class. And what is P4 overall in the GT3s as we return to live pictures. But as they make the way on, around and onwards, with the remaining half an hour of this race still to go. Again, we still do have 2 of our LMP2 drivers who we believe are going to be going all the way down to the wire. And we have 9, in fact now 7 of our LMDh drivers, our top 7 LMDh drivers, still yet to take their 1 pit stop. Presuming it is just going to be the one, of course, given how far they've got in the race. And we're having to wait and see who is going to pull the trigger on the next round of pit stops for those leaders. As meanwhile, we can see here also now Benjamin McCluskey ahead of Chris Danes still, but the problem for him is he now has to cut his way between what is an LMP on one side and a GT3 on the other. He finds his way on through, but Danes meanwhile does not. Chris Danes does go around the outside there, Stefan Albanese, who's P2 in the GT3 Silver class, but as they make the way around, well, Danes there using the greater aero package compared to the LMP2 Dallara to go around the outside of Sykes. I think Sykes are having to be very careful on the throttle, because if he even felt one little bit of oversteer, I think the 2 of them would have been going off into the runoff area, but still they've navigated it safely. That goes to show you Chris Danes right now does not want anything between himself and McCluskey here, including the LMP2s, as they make the way through Dunlop and up into 11. He looks up the inside here. Stringer sees him coming, to be fair, and the Danishman comes on through, and Kevin Stringer with great awareness. To be fair, the amount of awareness being shown by all the classes today has been phenomenal for the season opener. We'd expect no less, to be fair, but of course when it is a season opener, sometimes there's a little bit of rust that has to be shaken off, a little bit of open season nerves that has to be worn off. But World is doing splendidly with that regard, and as we continue to see them making on way down through the start-finish straight, you can see McCluskey and Danes literally, they pass one driver, tuck back in to get a bit more toe, and then go back round them with the GT3s here as they make the way around Fowler. And that is, of course, Russell Fowler there, P5 in the GT3 Gold class, P20 overall, as they make the way down towards turn number 1. As they come on through, Stringer coming in very hot there on the inside of Jack Barker, and that's the difference, of course, in the ability of these LMP2 cars to just retard the car all the way under braking at such high speed. And as they make the way on through, we do say hello there in the YouTube chat to Fernando Golbe, of course, one of our NXTGEN drivers, and right now tuning in for this Proto GT3 Championship as we see Stringer there flashing his lights like a man possessed to win, as he has to get the signal through to Fowler, which is, look, I am coming through and I am not holding back right now. And well, you can understand there when Mark Sykes making it a bit easier on himself, going up the inside of Fowler in the run through turn number 6. But as they come on through here, these two with traffic between them, they're not being given the opportunity to fight one another right now, but you can imagine they will have an opportunity coming soon. But meanwhile, whilst they are trying to size up one another, We've had a bit of a moment for Jochen Seeger, who we see here running his way up into turn number 14 on the outside there of what is your GT3 gold and overall leader of Drury. And as they make the way down towards turn number 1, well, Jochen Seeger has got Callum Jenkins right behind him there by a gap of only 4 tenths, and we'll find out very shortly what happens to Jochen Seeger to push him backwards in this position, because he's had a spin by the sounds of things. And as they make the way down here, will Jenkins get the move under braking this time? No, he'll have to wait and look for it elsewhere on circuit. But we take a look back at exactly what happened to Jochen Seeger only moments ago. So this was in the run down towards turn number 1. Does he just get it wrong under braking here? Goes onto the brakes, heads on into the apex, and the car just lets go there as he comes off the brakes. And well, that's not the way you want it to go. And the German, they're being caught out significantly, and that's cost him quite a bit of time, but not for anybody else there. Just an incident of his own doing as we return to the live pictures. But as we see here, Callum Jenkins continues to chase down the driver ahead of him. Well, right now the privateer doing everything that he can to try and find a way to stay as close as possible in that tow for the start finish straight. But of course, the remainder of the lap, he does seem to be losing out quite considerably as he loses 3 tenths there in the run through Dunlop, and that is going to cost him dear in the run out of turn number 14 if he can't close it back up through Nets Bend. But meanwhile, looking from them, we do look a little bit further back down the order, in particular to our GT3s, and we look to Espresso Rien here, who is chasing after Ollie Wayne in the battle for what for them is P25 overall, as they come on down through at turns 4 and 5, through at the long right hand of 100R, and as they come up towards turn number 6, well, they're not battling within their individual driver class, they're battling the cross class for GT3 overall, but still it'll mean all the same to them as they come down towards turn number 10 shortly. And the Norwegian right now for Team Slomo definitely trying to make a bit more ground and turn things around after a difficult start to the racing today. But as he heads on through Dunlop once more, then you can see the way they bounce through the corner there off of the apex curb. The suspension really taking a knock, but again, these cars made for it. And meanwhile, we do look back up to our LMP2s. And here is what we believe is your effective LMP2 leader, albeit Nigel Stock's still 6 seconds ahead. But again, he's got 22 minutes to go. But Sykes on the inside locks up and just about, Kevin Stringer just about finds a way to avoid tapping the rear of Sykes with a cutback there. And will Sykes going all in there, feeling as though it was do or die there. But unfortunately, the attack wilted away with the lock-up under braking, meaning that Stringer just simply make his way back on through. But Stringer now knows that Sykes is not afraid to send it into turn number 1. And that's going to be on the mind of Stringer right now. As meanwhile, a bit further up the road, Craig Jones had a bit of a spin at turn number 13 at net, and that has released Jamie Dory ahead of him, albeit a change of place over on the LMDh class, not in class, with Jones, the LMDh gold driver, ahead of what was the LMDh silver driver for a time of Dory. But now they've swapped over all places on circuit as they make their way down the start finish straight. But as they come on down, still we do have what is a top 6 in the LMDh class that is yet to pit. That is Benjamin McCluskey, your overall and LMDh leader in what is both the overall classification of the LMDh and gold class. And then we also have Chris Daines, Gaz Williams, William Foyle, Paul Williams, your LMDh silver leader, and David Harney. None of them have come into the pits as of yet, and we are waiting to see when they will come on in. We've still got 20 minutes of racing to go here at Fuji Speedway in the season opener, and right now we could cut the tension with a knife with regards to the fact that any moment when a pit stop comes, it could quite upset the balance of a number of drivers and indeed really shake up the order once again. But here is your overall leader right now, McCluskey, who seems to be in a very comfortable place out front and just holding on as he makes his way into turn number 6 once again. And Chris Daines by 3.6 seconds off. But again, has Daines been doing some fuel saving in all of the race? Has McCluskey been doing some fuel saving? That's the thing that we have on our minds here. As meanwhile, David Harney finding himself there, being potentially passed by Paul Williams as they almost come together there, as the two of them trying to make their way in between what is there, the GT3s. They part the seas of the GT3s like Moses, and as they make their way down towards turn number 1, well, Harney right now losing out there slightly versus Williams, but still both drives there safely on through, and that's what will matter most to them as they make their way into turn number 1 once again. Paul Williams, of course, in the LMDh silver class, Harney in the gold class, so it's just a change of overall position. You can see there the near lock-up on Harney's front right tyre as he made his way under braking into turn 1, and I think they are really starting to pick up now that aggression in the car, but in turn they've got to measure it carefully, given the fact that a lock-up is really going to hurt those tyres lap after lap if they continue to go through and lock up the brakes into the opening quarter from such a high speed, coming down from almost 190 miles an hour to approximately 50 miles an hour. Well, if you put that much pressure on the front tyres, it's definitely going to come back to bite later on when it comes to tyre degradation. but as they come on through here, meanwhile we do look to what is Mark Sykes versus Kevin Stringer. The battle for P2 and the LMP2 class rages on. Sykes giving pursuit as he looks up the inside this time. Then he will be looking not to lock it up under braking here. He makes sure to then give Stringer little room as possible in the run into the hairpin. Stringer there obliges, doesn't look for the cutback, just waits to see if Sykes makes an error. Mark Sykes takes the position off of him. But again, now Stringer will look to come back at him as we ride on board with the third place driver. Now making it through the left-hander and down towards turns 4 and 5 here. They will have what is there, the GT3 Ferrari of Beauvoir on the inside. They'll make the way on around. Both do so with the aerodynamic downforce available to them, the LMP2s. Of course, that does give them the ability to take that wider line with a relative degree of comfort. And as they make the way through turns 8, 9 and down towards 10 now, you see how Stringer falling back a little bit here, but he does seem to be very confident in running in this dirty air in the last sector and closing up to Sykes. He brings that gap down. Of course, the Stringer, that turn 10 will definitely haunt him a little bit after the mistake at the end of race number 1, which cost him so dear. As you see William Voll coming on through there, and Voll and the LMDh will now try to come past Sykes, albeit their Stringer not really losing any time in the run through turn number 11 as Voll came on through, measuring that quite nicely as they make the way into turn number 14. In fact, Sykes there goes very deep. That's going to cost him the run out the corner, albeit will it cost him that much time? It doesn't look as though they're Stringer having to battle with the steering a little bit, and I think just feeling the dirty air off of the two cars in front really take away the front end grip as they make the way down. And Stringer there, it does look a long distance, and that is 9/10 of a second to Mark Sykes, and Sykes of course with the toe of William Voll ahead of him will benefit quite considerably this time around as they come down to the braking zone. But as they make the way on down, we look back to the GT3s here, and it's the battle for P5 in the GT3 Gold class between Ole and Martin Mjørk from Norway for Team Slow-Mo and Jack Barker, the privateer from Made for Racing in the United Kingdom. The Audi driver here trying to hold on as he comes on through. The right hander powers on out here, and we still do have quite a bit of time to go. They've cleared their pit stop, so this is for track position all the way to the end as they make the way on down. And that Audi getting a better run, does Barker, compared to what is there Mjørk, as they make the way all the way on towards turn number 1 once again. The Ferrari will gain as it hits 6th gear, of course. It does have quite a bit of speed in that top gear, but it needs the toe to realise that speed. But as they make the way down into the braking zone here, no exchange this time around. Barker doing enough as they come on through the right hand. He goes a bit deep, and this may open the door up to run into Coca-Cola, but I don't think so, given the run distance and also the fact that they're Barker able to bring it back together just in time as they come into left-hander. But as we ride on board the gearbox here of the number 31 car, making his way on down through 4, 5, we can see them having no sign of difficulty running in that dirty air, as they do have their Jamie Dory going around the outside and Craig Jones as well. Now this could be an opportunity for them to get a bit closer as Barker goes deep. He goes very deep in fact as he leaves the door open, but using a high line, he gives himself all the room to put the power down. So Barker right now being really smart with where he's putting the car with the traffic coming on through and making sure he's just got enough an acceleration run to the next corner to keep himself safe, but definitely right now on the bubble as they make the way through Dunlop and into turn number 11. As they come on through a little bit further behind them, we do have two drivers coming together. It looks as though in the rear of the picture, I'm not quite sure who it was. In fact, it was one of LMDh cars, as we hear that William Voll has made his way into the pit lane. So we are starting to see those pit stops for our top 6 LMDh drivers. Will we see any more shortly? Of course, that will be the question, as Mjørk makes his way out the inside of Barker and goes all in, and now it's going to be a drag race down towards turn number 1. Well, Barker is going to have the initial acceleration, but the Ferrari's got the top end as they head on down here. It's literally neck and neck as they make the way across the timing line, but the Ferrari on the inside there, the Team Slow-Mo driver Mjørk doing everything he can here to make sure this stays in his hands. And as they now get ready to go on to the anchors here, literally noses in line here, it's a dead heat, but on the inside there I think only Martin Mjørk may get it done, and he does hook it up under the brake in there, and he takes P5 in the GT3 Gold class as Barker puts up the defence, but it's not enough in the end as they make the way up towards turn number 3. But as they come roaring on through, we look to Jamie Dory here with William Vaughan. These two of course have pitted, and they've come out over the top of one another. They're now stubbing one another's toes effectively, to use something which of course we can all relate to. When you do stub your toe, it's one of the most painful experiences, and this is pain from a strategy perspective, because they will not want to be tripping over one another in going hunting after their relative aspirations. Dory wanted to win the MDH Silver class. Be fair, he's actually got quite a margin over Paul Williams on what is 35 seconds at least, so I think he will feel safe. In fact, it's 38 seconds there, as you see on the timing tower. Meanwhile, for William Voyle, he wants to go hunting after David Harney, and in return he does not. Craig Jones is only half a second behind, but Craig Jones loses the car under braking into turn number 13. And I think now suddenly William Voyle may not be feeling the pain as much as they make the way onto the next lap. In fact, Craig Jones there with a mistake for SCCR Simsports, we should say. Now he's got to do it again after closing up so rapidly over the course of the last lap. As he makes his way on down the start finish straight, it's still plenty of time for it to make amends. 14 minutes to go. It doesn't sound like much, but at this circuit in these LMDh cars, with the lap being just under 1.5 minutes, that is plenty of time in relative consideration. But meanwhile, we've got Chris Danes. He finally comes into the pit lane. What about Benjamin McCluskey? Well, McCluskey has already pitted, in fact, so now it all comes down to has Danes done enough to come on back, given the fact they were separated by 3.5 seconds, if we recall correctly, when McCluskey came into the pit lane from the lead of the MDH cars. Has Danes saved fuel? Has he found a way to undermine the strategy of McCluskey? And the Next Gen Racing purple driver, who we're looking at right now, makes his way through the final corner, impeded a little bit by Sean Scooter in terms of having to come off his racing line. Scooter just running his race, to be fair, and as they make the way up to speed now, well, Danes leaving his pit stall, but where is McCluskey, I hear you ask? Here is Benjamin McCluskey as he makes his way down. It's going to be very close between the two of them. Danes leaves the pit lane. Where's McCluskey? McCluskey says he's going to have the overspeed. Danes goes all in. He opens it up as much as he can, respecting the pit exit line. They're side by side on pit exit here, and Danes has recovered 4 seconds in the pit lane. McCluskey down the outside goes wide, and Chris Danes retakes the lead of the overall and also in the gold LMDh class with only 13 minutes to go. It was an absolutely phenomenal run of strategy here. He went long, and I can only imagine when he was battling so hard earlier, he was battling with fuel saving non-stop, but now McCluskey will do one thing only, and that is he will be absolutely galvanised to find a way past the Danishman before Chris Danes can put the hammer down. If Danes gets away, he is gone. We reckon as they make the way to turn number 10, and right now charging up the hill, they've got traffic ahead of them. They've got plenty of GT3s in the way, and it's how they hit this traffic that will be the difference between whether Danes can break away or whether McCluskey can stay right there with him and harass him relentlessly all the way to the end. They come out of Nets Bend, up towards 14 they go, and you can see that's Rian on what is there the outside of turn number 14, and also Bennyworth steering clear. And as they make their way past the GT3s right now, nobody in the GT3 class, when they hear on the radio from the team principal the leaders are coming through, nobody wants to interfere in this right now. Tempers will be boiling over otherwise. And as they make their way down towards turn number 1, Danes here has got nowhere to go other than to defend. McCluskey looks to the inside, Danes brings it into the centre of the road, but he thinks better of it. McCluskey out the inside there, they're going to be side by side through turn number 1. No contact between them, but Danes runs a little bit wide, much like McCluskey on the previous lap. But as they exit out, they're using the runoff space. Danes holds the outside to inside into 3. They head on into left hand. They have Ollie Wayne for company just ahead on the GT3 driver. And as we ride on board here with McCluskey, they roll the way on down here through the long right hander. And the Next Gen Racing purple driver, they're going for the cutback out of 5, getting a huge run as they make their way into turn number 6. He looks at the cutback there, but the car just simply carries him a bit too deep. And you see what McCluskey's trying to do. He is trying to get Danes to commit to the standard racing lines and go deep in with so much pressure on. And McCluskey, every corner, he is setting up a cutback. He is looking for that charge to the next corner. He wants that pressure there for Danes all the way to the end. But the one thing about Chris Danes, of course, is when he's on point, he's absolutely infallible. And right now, there's not a mistake between the two of them as they make the way through turn 13. The bollard there takes a bit of a knock from McCluskey's car, but as they make the way through 14, they now do have Baz Meacham, your GT3 bronze leader, ahead, albeit Meacham's not going to mind this too much because all he's going to see on his right hand view very shortly is 2 LMDh's go charging on through as the hybrid V8 of the BMW's absolutely roar past the 6-cylinder petrol engine of the BMW M4. And as they make their way down towards turn 1, Danes almost taking a bit of grass there. I think coming across a bit too aggressively and now making his way up the inside of Benson. And meanwhile, McCluskey will go all in to try and find his way past Benson as well. He will not want any cars in a corner between him and Danes, as Danes will lock up there. And I think Chris Danes feeling a little bit of pressure for the first time right now. If he wasn't beforehand, of course, as they make their way up into turn number 3. We see the Sean Cradley's watching the YouTube chat, enjoying it, cheering on Chris Danes as well. And we can see there Henning Hargate enjoying it as well. Pretty butchered your name, Henning. I apologise, but we can't apologise too much for that right now because this race is going down to the wire as they make their way to turn number 6 once again. But as they come through, it's not just about them. Of course, there's all other drivers on circuit, but this is the closest battle on circuit by a significant margin right now. And we're going to stay with it for the time being, if you don't mind us doing so, ladies and gentlemen, because this is what it's all about. Afterwards, 50 minutes of racing, separated by only 4 tenths of a second, and they are running all the way to the finish. They find more traffic. It's the GT3 of Jack Barker. But as they make the way up towards turn number 13, Barker just stays on the inside. Danes and McCluskey go around, and you can see they're both of them wiggling on the rear end, oversteer kicking in. They're both trying to find so much grip on tyres that are beaten, battered and bruised, but they rage on all the same as they make their way to the start finish straight once again. But in terms of when they're going to have some clear track, they will in about 4 laps time, because they have cleared most of the GT3s for the time being. You can see that on the circuit map, looking at the different colorations. They have mostly cleared that GT3 traffic right now, but they do have approximately 8 more cars between them and in a run of what is approximately a whole sector's worth of lap space in order to go racing. But as they make the way on through here, we also just give you a quick update to let you know that Ryan Walker, P1 in the silver class of the GT3s, has found his way past P2 driver in the gold class of the GT3s of what is Magnus Flirtenberg-Kecker, as they continue on racing a bit further down the order, but their gap now over a second here. This is the closest gap. There's no gap in the second other than this one. And as they make the way through 4, 5 and up into 6, on the brakes they go once again, and Danes again really feeling the pinch, and McCluskey gets a better exit this time. It's going to be a drag race on down, but Danes has got the inside, McCluskey on the outside. Now can McCluskey go all the way around? They go around the outside there of Amklov, and as they make the way in, McCluskey has to back out. My good lord, that was absolutely as tight as it could have been. I think all 3 drivers there will absolutely nail it and know exactly where they needed to go, and well, that looked absolutely natural. But I wonder if Almkov there may have just been sweating a little bit with the fact he just had 2 LMDhs decide to part the seas around him and battle for position in doing so. But as they make the way out of turn number 14, once more here now, it's the start finish straight, 3 temps between them, and further back we do have Tom Bingham here in with the GT3 silver class, trying to find his way past GT3 gold driver of what is Espresso Rian into turn number 10. Can't find his way through at the moment as they make the way on up towards turn number 11, but as they come on through, we look back to the leaders here, the LMDh class, and you can see Danes right now defend on the inside. Thankfully he does have Silverstone between himself and the outside line, and what that does is it compacts the amount of racing space available for McCluskey to try and capitalise. And as they make the way into turn number 3 here, they come behind Schultzke, who goes immediately wide there. He doesn't want any part of this, and to be fair to Schultzke, great awareness as they make the way through turns 4 and 5, up the hill towards 6 they go. More GT3s again here, they're cutting through that GT3 class back. They've only got 2 more GT3s to go now, once they've cleared at Ryan Walker, and then they will be clear for a good amount of time, and we should see this battle reach its crescendo, presuming of course that Danes, if he hasn't got traffic to try and work with, is not able to break away from McCluskey, or alternatively that McCluskey can match Danes' pace when they're in clear air, the pair of them. They come up behind third place in GT3 bronze class head Beauvoir as they make the way in towards turn number 13 once again. And Danes is caught up here. McCluskey, however, has to show Danes a little bit of space as Danes tries to pick his way around, and as they come on through, Danes gets the better run through 14, but McCluskey follows him and will use the toe to make up the time he lost as they make the way past Jordan Beauvoir and down towards turn number 1 once again. Still 6 minutes left to go. Elsewhere on circuit, we do have Baz Meacham, who's breaking away with that chasing after there Eric Benson in the battle for what is there in the GT3 class, 4th position, P23 overall. And as they come on through, well, Danes and McCluskey right now still close as they make the way out of turn number 1. We come on back for a brief moment as they make the way up towards turn number 3 once again, and right on the gearbox here, oh, the Danishman, well, he has done everything he can so far, everything that has been thrown at him by McCluskey, he has found a response to everything the traffic has thrown at him. He safely found a way on through, albeit I think at certain points it could have been very close to the mark. But as they make the way out of turn number 6 and 7 and down towards 10 once again, they pass the LMP2s later on in the lap. They won't be getting near them at the moment. Meanwhile, we can give you an update in the LMP2 class. We can confirm that Kevin Stringer is leading in the LMP2s by a 15-second margin over Mark Sykes, as we hear that Jochen Seeger is into the pit lane once again, and I believe this is for a fuel stop, a late fuel stop, given the fact he did have to come in quite early in the race due to damage picked up. And that will cost him P3 in the LMDh silver class today, presuming that Callum Jenkins does not have to do the same, given both tries had a difficult race. But still at the same time here, Chris and Danes pushing on. as he makes his way out the corner, and there the gap 4 attempts as they head on down the straight. And I think now that we do have a bit of a quiet period, McCluskey's there, but I think Danes is feeling as though this is working out for him in terms of he's got clear track to play with, and you can see that gap opening up. A bob and weave, he's allowed one weave on the straight, no more than that. And as they make their way into the braking zone, he returns to the racing line as they come on through the hairpin at turn number 1. And will McCluskey there close, but no cigar when it comes to trying to find the move. And he's going to have the speed here in the route towards Coca-Cola, but he's just not got the time to get alongside. And this is where Dane's in the clear air now. The next bit of traffic ahead of him is P6 in the LMDh class, and that is in the LMDh gold class, we should say, of David Harney, who is going out to turn number 7 right now. But McCluskey looks down the outside as Danes defends the inside, and McCluskey gets a huge run around the outside, but Danes make sure that McCluskey has to go out dry to the wide line. And as they make the way on down towards turn number 10, I think they will be battling. I don't think the Danes is just going to break away as they come on through Dunlop and up towards 11. But as they come on through here, we're hearing there's been a bit of an instant further up the road for William Foyle, and we've had a spin by the sounds of things for the GT3 gold leader of Frederick Spencer Deroy, as meanwhile we see here Danes goes deep. McCluskey looks up the inside into 13, but Danes is back at him now. We stay with us as they make the way through turn number 14, and Danes is looking very compromised here on the run down towards turn number 1, and now I don't think he's going to be safe. I think Danes has got to prepare to dig in on that inside line and entrench himself, but what will McCluskey do? Danes pulls all the way over to the wall, and McCluskey goes to left to him here, and there's no way to cut back at this point. The two of them literally almost touching there as they make the way into the braking zone. Danes makes sure to squeeze McCluskey. He sees there Stimon on the outside. Stimon pulls off circuit there, but still that makes McCluskey think twice about the move, because he would have been caught up in the Constantina behind the Mercedes GT3. And as they make the way into turn number 3, they go side by side with a left-hander. Danes cuts a bit over the curb. Is it a slowdown? We're not quite sure. We'll find out shortly when he comes out of turn number 6. He's picked it up. He'll have to serve the slowdown in the run down towards turn number 10. I think it may have just been within, but in terms of that goes to show you now that both drivers are trying to do everything they can to exploit the tiniest little bit of track space. And as they make the way down towards turn at number 10 here, McCluskey is close. He is breathing down at the Danishman's neck, and right now as they make the way through Dunlop, you can see there Paul Scott immediately moves out of the way. Everybody knows this is coming. Nobody wants to be the driver who interfered in the LMDh battle at Fuji. And as they make their way through turn number 13, coming roaring on through. In terms of other updates right now, we're hearing that Jonathan Ayerson has passed Ryan Walker for what is P3 overall in the GT3 class. No change of class position, specific in driver classes, but to give you an update on that. But we stay with this battle even more as they make the way on down, and McCluskey once again takes a look to the outside here as they come charging on down. And well, now with 2 laps to go, and McCluskey has the overspeed. He's going to get his nose ahead slightly, but is it enough? It's not enough here as they both top out in terms of speed. There's a bit of smoke up on the corner, and that is David Harney there going off at turn number 1. Harney returns. Danes there flashes lights briefly. I think Harney will know what's coming. Indeed, he moves out of the way, and McCluskey once again goes round the outside and finds the space to do so as we ride on board here with the NXTGEN Racing purple driver. And we're in this with a couple more instances on circuit, and Nigel Stott and also Ingvar Almakov, as meanwhile they make it the way to the braking zone, and McCluskey once again being squeezed there with no space between himself and what was Rian on the outside in the GT3 and Danes on the inside. Danes will lock up, however. Danes is really struggling on that front left tyre as they make the way in towards turn number 10 here. And can McCluskey capitalise? I mean, to be fair, if Danes hasn't got the ability to break away on pace, he's definitely right now using the traffic to his advantage and making sure there's only one line for each corner, and it's the Danes dictated line as they make the way into turn 13. You can see that Bingham moves clear as they roll the way on through, but making the way out towards turn 14, we do look to here what is Ole Martin Mjörk, who's battling with the Mercedes there of Russell Fowler. Fowler goes deep as the car turned on around, and that is Mark Sykes, who's turned around at turn number 1, and Mjörk takes P4 in the GT3 gold class of what is there his rival. But meanwhile, here's the leaders overall. They go on to the final lap. They'll go into a 43rd and final turn of the Fuji Speedway circuit, and right now it is Chris Danes who leads ahead of Benjamin McCluskey on this final lap. Elsewhere, the battles for the lead of all the classes have been settled, barring any last minute potential pit stop drama. The battling has calmed down for the most part in the individual driver classes, and we are staying with this all the way to the end as they come through. McCluskey's up the inside, and as they come through 4-5, I don't think Danes has got anything left in the tyres. He goes deep, he goes wide, and McCluskey is through as Danes locks up. McCluskey has found a way through the defence of Danes, and now he's only separated from a win by what is a total of 5 corners when he comes to turn number 10. It's happened at such short notice, but as they made the way through 4-5, McCluskey just had the title. You'd see Danes is struggling as he comes through Dunlop, and I think he's got to give it up. But McCluskey now in the worst possible place. He's got traffic on the inside into next Ben Baz Beach, and then McCluskey's got to try and go around the outside, but I think the fact that he has got approximately 8 tenths between himself and Danes, it's more than enough. And as they make the way through turn number 14, well, I think he's done it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a straight run to the finish here, and for Benjamin McCluskey, he has just claimed a huge scalp in the feature race today. He comes to the line, the checker flag awaits him, and he wins for Next Gen Racing Purple overall in the LMDh class and in the LMDh Gold class ahead of Chris Danes P2 in a superb battle. Then Baz Meacham will come through to take GT3 bronze victory. A brilliant drive from Baz Meacham by 37 seconds, and then we will shortly have, I believe, coming to the line Gaz Williams to take P3 in the LMDh Gold class, and then our next driver to cross the line will be Jamie Dorey, who takes the win in the LMDh Silver class as he comes up through in a dominant display for the Next Gen Racing orange driver. And then we will have what is not quite P2 in the LMDh Silver class as of yet. Instead, what we will have coming out of the final corner here after the disappointment at the end of race number 1 here today in the sprint, he's turned that frown upside down into a smile for SCCR Sim Sports, because Kevin Stringer comes to line, your winner in the LMP2 class, ahead of Mark Sykes by what will be 28 seconds or so. And then very shortly we will have your gold winner here for Team Slow-Mo of Frederick Stensbold Dury as he crosses the line by a margin of what is in the end 2 seconds over Berkacker in P2. Magnus Flittum, Berkacker crossing the line there, and then it will be Johan Eirson ahead of what will be silver winner shortly of Ryan Walker, who crosses the line P1 in the silver GT3 class. And then we will have coming on through just after him only Martin Mjork, just ahead of Jack Barker as they cross the line there, and that's in the GT3 Gold class, P4, P5. Stefan Albanese P2 in the GT3 Silver class, turn it back to P2 after it's been early on 2 him away from the lead. And I believe with that it's everybody who has crossed the finish line. But what a fantastic race from start to finish, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you right now, I've got no voice left. And well, with how close the battling was, absolutely phenomenal from start to finish. And what if that is the tempo that is going to be set across all of our classes and over the course of this season for season 2, we are in for such a treat round after round. And this is just round number 1, and the caliber of the driving has been phenomenal as we see McCluskey coming on in. Huge mention as well to Daniel Stimon, who finished P2 in the GT3 Bronze class. He's already made his way into pit lane. And also to Jordan Bebois, who came on home in P3 in the GT3 Bronze class. And also to Benny Worth, P5 in the GT3 Silver class. But more impressively for Ollie Wayne, P3 in the GT3 Silver classes. We do see their Team Slow-Mo line up for their team photo, and we're a little bit cheeky of them all coming together, but I think they're pleased with their debut in this series. But fantastic racing all the same, and that man in the centre of them, Frederick Stensbold Dury, recovering and redeeming himself after a disastrous race number 1 with that spin from the lead, but bringing home the win in race number 2 in the GT3 Gold class. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to bring you those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. We start off with the overall results. So we can see here, starting from the top, Benjamin McCluskey taking the win overall in both all categories combined, and also the LMDh class, and also your LMDh Gold winner for Next Gen Racing Purple by 9 tenths, almost a whole second over Chris Danes, who battled him all the way from start to finish, but could not quite find a way to undercut and usurp McCluskey's ability just to push him a little bit further. And Danes with that mistake, and also the wear on the tyres, just not able to find a way back. Gaz Williams there, P3 for Next Gen Racing Purple. And a good start to his season ahead of what was your LMD silver winner of Jamie Dory for Next Gen Racing Orange. And then Craig Jones in P5 there for SCCR Sim Sports ahead of William Foyle. But drivers of note here we come on to Paul Williams P7 for Speed 9 Esports overall. And that is, of course, with the win, well, not the win, my apologies, second place in the LMDh silver class. And then we can also see in P10 there overall Callum Jenkins, the privateer, rounding off the LMDh silver podium. We then come on to our LMP2 drivers of Kevin Stringer, Mark Sykes and Nigel Stott, P12 through to P14. That's how they finished on the podium. Congratulations to Kevin Stringer for the win in this second race of the day. And then coming on to our GT3s, we can see that your overall GT3 winner P15 of all the drivers there in the overall field, Frederick Stensbolt Jury in what was that win for Team Slow-Mo. 5 laps down on the LMDHs, but a brilliant drive from the Team Slow-Mo driver, just ahead of Team Slow-Mo leftovers driver Magnus Berkacker. And then we can see Johan Essen there completing the GT3 overall podium and also the GT3 gold podium. Ryan Walker in P18 there, your GT3 silver winner, and his fellow podium joiners there, Stefan Albanese P21 and Ollie Wayne P24. And then we can see in the GT3 bronze class, P23 overall at Baz Meacham, making it another win in the bronze class for the privateer in the BMW M4, ahead of second place in class P27 there, Daniel Stimman for Rossum's Universal Robots. And then we continue to look on down there, and P3 in the GT3 bronze class, P30 overall, Jordan Baywa in the privateer machine from France, in a great drive to be on the podium. But now let's come on to the individual class classifications here, because these, of course, are where all the points will be distributed. We start off with the MDH Gold class, and we can see that confirmation of Benjamin McCluskey winning by that 1 second margin over Chris Staines, Gaz Williams completing the LMDH Gold podium, and then Craig Jones with a difficult feature race today. I think he would have felt if things had played out differently, perhaps he would have been on that podium, minus the mistakes. And then William Foyle, David Harney and Magno Yonland completing the run of the standings. We then come on to the LMDH Silver class. And we can see here, Jamie Dory taking the win by 46.1 seconds in a faultless drive for Next Gen Racing Orange. Paul Williams there for Speed 9 Esports, picking up another podium, a great result for him. And then Callum Jenkins finishing a lap down the privateer ahead of Jochen Siegert for Speed 9 Esports. It did not work out for Jochen Siegert with those 2 pit stops on the cards, much like Callum Jenkins, but Jenkins having a bit of a smoother run by comparison. Then coming on to the LMP2 class, let's not forget about them in our Proto category. We see here Kevin Stringer taking the win by 29 seconds over Mark Sykes, who was with him for the majority of the race, but 2 spins cost him very dear. And in the end, the Next Gen Racing Orange try home to settle for second, and Nigel Stott completing the podium. And then we come on to the GT3 classes, starting with the golds, and we can see here that Frederick Jury taking the win by 2 seconds over Team Slow-Mo leftovers driver, not in the same Team Slow-Mo team, and therefore battling against one another this season, of course, and not looking to work together. Magnus Bjerkecker there in P2, and Johan Essen from Team Slow-Mo base on what was P3, 9 seconds off the winner. Ole Martin Mjork with a couple of spins towards the end and mistakes cost him a chance at a podium, but he finished P4 there, 20 seconds down. And then we see completing the top 5 the privateer of Jack Barker in a stronger race too compared to his sprint, and looking to get a feel for that Audi still. And we see Eric Benson there, P6 of Team Slow-Mo, ahead of Performance Link Esports' Russell Fowler, and then Espresso Rien from Team Slow-Mo completing the GT3 golds. Then we go on to the GT3 silvers. And we can see here Ryan Walker taking the win by 13.4 seconds in a strong set of performances today for the privateer, and long may those continue in his mind, as the privateer will be looking to really compound and gain more momentum as we go into round number 2 at next time out. Stefan Albanese, the Italian there, losing the win in the end with a spin, but still recovering to P2. Watch out for him, he's looking fast in the DRS Esports privateer machine. And then Ollie Wayne P3 ahead of Tom Bingham, Ben Bennyworth, Paul Scott and Mark Arrowsmith. Arrowsmith for that early retirement, only what was in the end for them approximately 5 laps into the race. And then coming on to the last of our driver classes, the GT3 bronze class, Baz Meacham there taking the win by 31.1 seconds. The privateer making a superb start to his season, ahead of Daniel Stimon, the Rossum's Universal Robots driver there, really digging in and pulling out a great result in race number 2. And then Jordan Baywa there, P3, the privateer from France, in a great race for him, ahead of Eric Silverstone. And then we can see Ingar Almaklov, we should say, completing the top 5 with Elwin Sykes P6, Sean Scudder P7 and Artie Chatsikons P8 there. The privateer having a difficult race and retiring early, only what was in the end at 12 laps in. Congratulations to all of our drivers, and a special congratulations to our winners. And now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we very shortly do have our post-round interviews coming up with our 4 volunteer drivers. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes of those. But before we go anywhere, of course, fantastic racing today. And if you are tuning in on any of the media channels right now, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, alternatively on Twitch, be sure to subscribe for plenty more next-gen racing action over the course of this year. You won't want to miss any of it, but we'll be back in about 10 minutes of those post-round interviews. We'll catch you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to now conduct our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. Now, we do have 3 volunteers currently, but a 4th has just put their hand forward, so we'll come and update our board very shortly. They've just put their name forward as we come back on in, but we will very shortly be kicking off by hearing from one of our leading LMDh gold drivers from today, and that was Chris Staines, a driver who took it all the way to the wire. And then after him, we'll be speaking to our GT3 Silver driver. Had a great run of results of Tom Bingham from Performance Link Esports before coming to our LMP2 driver of Nigel Stock, the privateer, who wasn't quite on the pace of his peers today, but still enjoyed good racing. And we'll also, our 4th driver will be Jack Barker, the privateer in the GT3 Gold class on his first league race in iRacing. We'll get to hear his perspective. But we start off with Chris Staines, and as he does join me in the interview room now, Chris, what a way to kick off your defence of your Proto GT3 Championship title, albeit in the LMP2s all those months ago, but now running in the LMDh class. Oh, it looks as though we've got a little bit of a problem with regards to being able to speak to Chris in the chat. We're just going to see what we can do about that. Give us a brief moment. Hello, Chris. Is it coming through now? Brilliant. So apologies for that, Chris. A bit of a technical blip that we weren't quite sure what happened there, but still it's being resolved. But still, fantastic racing for yourself start to finish. And, well, kicking off your defence on a high. Not quite the perfect pair of results, but very close to it.
It was, I'm well happy with tonight. It was perfect for me because I'd done everything I knew I could. And the racing's been so clean. Between us guys at the front there. I know there's a few issues further down the field, but with regards to what we done tonight was just I'm over the moon, mate. I'm smiling. I'm glad we're back. I'm glad we're back.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant to hear, and what a way to come back. And firstly, before we come on to the racing itself, you opted to go from the LMP2 to the LMDh, the new BMW V8M hybrid. Just take us through that car choice. What's drawn you to the beast with a hybrid and also that wonderful 640 horsepower M engine?
Well, I was like you say, I initially entered LMP2, and then I realised close towards the registration ending, I knew there wasn't a lot of signed up to the LMP2 category, and I wanted a bigger grid, I guess. I think that was pretty much it. I would have loved to have raced in the LMP2, but I just don't think the grid may not have sustained throughout the championship. So I moved to the LMDh knowing that the grids would always be pretty strong there, so I can get some sort of a what's the word, championship out of it to try and defend, because I didn't fancy getting into a 4 or 5 car championship because I've done that before and it was a little bit drawn out, let's say. So I'm glad I did switch to the LMDh. Plus, it's a new challenge for me as well. It's a brand new car. I have no experience in this car whatsoever. I've only had 19 minutes on track before tonight's practice, so it's still a huge learning curve for me, this car, and I'm glad I did switch to it because, as you saw tonight, the racing's been absolutely top notch.
Oh, most definitely, and appreciate the insight there with regards to switching out only 19 minutes behind the wheel of the LMDh before turning the wheel in anger. And, well, let's come on to qualifying. You left it quite late in the session, but in the final 4 minutes, you went from being just inside the top 5 to dominating the timing screens. Was it the case that you had to really try and find that limit in qualifying and then put it all together? Just take us through how your session played out.
Yeah, so qualifying is very tricky because obviously you need to save enough battery to get the ultimate time and the ultimate lap time. And because the setups are fixed, you're fixed on a particular deployment mode. So we're set in qualifying mode, so you can't change it. You can't, save your energy by turning the deployment down. So I came out the pits and done one out lap, and I done a second lap as well, and I just kept getting 1Xs. So I thought, right, let's just try and get this battery back up to 100% so I can have one last charge towards the end. I mean, I put a lot of pressure on myself doing it, but that's the only chance I had because the clock was running down. So I charged the battery for 3 laps till I got 100% and just absolutely tooled it, and just every apex was brilliant. So yeah, it was a good lap. It was a good lap, but I only just nicked it from Gaz. I mean, the lap time he put in shocked me because I hadn't seen him do a lap time like that before. So Yeah, it was really, really close between the top three. I think less than half a tenth, isn't it?
Oh, most definitely. In the end, it came down to 9 thousandths between the two of you for that front row of the grid. And translating it over to the sprint race, of course, from the very start, of course, a bit cagey, everybody waiting for the pace car to pull in and gradually coming up to speed, but you left it as late as possible to go to the green. I presume that's because of the run to turn one.
Yeah, I mean the green light didn't come on until halfway down that straight, so we can't go before the green light comes on. So um, left it quite late, but I couldn't go any earlier than what we did. But yeah, as you say, it was really cagey going into turn one because it's the unknown. It's first race of the championship, first corner. Tyres are cold. You know, it's a new tyre model. That's the biggest thing that affected me tonight, especially in race two. So yeah, but it was a good race all in all. It was clean. I kept it at the front, and that was a good start to my championship.
Oh, indeed. And by being up the front there, of course, earning yourself reverse grid last place in the LMDh Gold class in the feature. Now, in the sprint, we saw you have a relatively clean run up front, but having to fight your way through the LMDh class, you came through the field pretty quick, but not without having to deal with some rather nasty turbulent air off of the back of other drivers.
Yeah, it was tricky. I mean, I had a cracking start. I think by first lap I went from what was it P8 or P9 to P2. So, but yeah, the turbulent air in these fast-flowing corners, especially in turns 4 and 5, it's yeah, you get a real bucket load of understeer. So it was a tough race, but yeah, it was. I think that the problem is with me not having enough time in this car is that this new tire model it's brutal. And if you lock up the tires, because these cars don't have ABS, I locked up far too many times going into the downhill left-hander before the third sector, and that really took life out of my tires. And I ended up with only 2% left on my tires of rubber, so I was really struggling towards the end there.
Indeed, and we'll come on to the moment where you were struggling right towards the end, and what has been really, I think, is going to be one of the highlights of the season. I'm already putting it out there; it's going to be in the top three, your battle with Benjamin McCluskey. But we saw early on in the race, you open up quite a bit of gap, and then McCluskey was getting closer and closer, and then the two of you were battling quite hard for 13 minutes before McCluskey decided to come into the pit. Were you doing quite a bit of fuel saving during that? Because it looked as though, for all the gusto that was going on between the two of you, there seemed to be some sort of edge you were building, and then you gained 4 seconds in the pit lane.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was doing. So like I said before, I locked up really heavily, um, going down the left-hander. I'm sorry, I don't know the corner names, but I locked up really heavily, which allowed Benji to come past me. And I thought, right, I've got to try and cool the tyres down. There's no point me trying to send it on the inside and fight back because it's just going to end up in tears. So the only thing I could do was try and save as much of that front left tyre as I could whilst fuel saving. So obviously into turn one, I was dumping the clutch. Now that is a really bad thing to do in the LMDHs because you don't regen any energy in the battery if you start dumping clutches. The regen is done on the brake pedal, so it was very difficult to like, do I save battery or do I save fuel? So it was so I thought I'd drop some time to Benji, save some fuel, and try and eke another lap out, which I did, and get back in front of him. And then yeah, there on out, it sort of you saw how it played out. But that's yeah, so I was fuel saving quite a bit to put it in. Cut a long one short.
Oh, indeed. But what a way it led to the battling in the second stint. In the end, it was 21 minutes of intense non-stop action between the two of you. And I have to ask firstly, when you came out the pits side by side and retook the lead at turn number one, could you quite believe how much time you'd saved in the pit lane?
Yes, because I'm good at doing that. it's, it's the one thing in my arsenal I'm very good at is fuel saving, as we saw in the LMP2 series last season. So I knew I was going to come out very close to him, but when we come out side by side, I didn't know it'd be that close. But I tell you what, Paul, if every round can be like this, it's just absolutely brilliant. I knew at the end of the day Benji would probably get me, but holding it onto the last lap, I thought maybe I've got a chance, but my tyres were so dead, and all credit to Benji. He was absolutely solid, and he gave me a real run, and he's a deserved winner tonight. Absolutely deserved winner. It just shows you the respect that two teams can have on track. And I've not raced Benji in the same class ever before, so the theory about, oh, you know, you race people that you don't know and it can cause accidents and stuff. This is proof that two people that haven't raced against each other in the same class can have an absolutely cracking battle with huge respect between one another.
Oh, most definitely. And just with regards to that battle at the end, of course, the tyres seemed to give way on the last couple of laps. But leading up to that, we had yourself and McCluskey so rapidly going through the field. I think at one point the two of you decided to part ways as we watch you making your way down towards turn 10 early in the race, but it's in the run down to turn 10, GT3 in the middle of the road, and the two of you just decided one of you went one way, the other went the other way, and there were so many instances where it was almost as if you two were in mental synchronicity with regards to just deciding, okay, there's a GT3, we're going to go around it together and then carry on the battle. I have to wonder, at any point was your heart beating through your chest and thinking, goodness me, I'm coming up behind so much traffic, there's so much dirt here, so much heat in the tyres as well, this is going to end in disaster? Was it always the way, sort of, you know what, head down, just keep on going?
I must admit, when you, I remember that incident where we come up to, not incident, but I remember that particular series of events which led us to splitting that GT3 up, and I remember that vividly. And I did approach it thinking, I've taken the wrong line, he's going to pull into me. And the thing is, when you're going through those motions, like you say, I actually sort of thought it was going to end in tears at some point. And I think that's why I'm just so over the moon that the fact it didn't, and it just ended exactly how everybody watching and everybody racing, and me and Benji racing, it just, that's how it should end. That's how every race should end and be throughout. And I'm just over the moon because that was probably one of the best league races I've done with Next Gen, and it's only round one. So if I've got another 9 rounds like that, I mean, Jesus, oh, oh my God, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm sweating from ear to ear.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And indeed, everybody in the YouTube, the Facebook, and the Twitch chat absolutely loved it from start to finish. And of course, that was just round number 1. And now as we look forward to round number 2 in a week's time, where we'll be heading to Germany for the Hockenheimring Grand Prix circuit, how are you feeling for the circuit in Baden-Württemberg?
Yeah, I like Hockenheim. It's a good track. It's a fantastic track, actually. I'm glad it's on iRacing because it was one of my childhood favourites watching with the old Hockenheimring years ago. But yeah, I do like it. I've not driven, obviously, well, I'm going to say that every round. I've not driven this car around any track apart from Daytona for 14 minutes. But other than that, I don't know what I'm up against. I know turn 1 can, the exit curve could be a bit tricky because it's very undulated, so the LMDh is quite low down, so I've got a feeling it's probably going to be struggle over there, so maybe not go too wide there. But other than that, I think it's going to be a cracking round. I'm really looking forward to it. A huge long straight into a tight hairpin, and yeah, that always proves a lot of incidents and great moves. So yeah, good circuit. Looking forward to it.
We look forward to you taking it to the German circuit in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Chris, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yep, I think I'm just going to give one shout out today because I think they deserve it, and it is to Next Gen for putting their faith in me to continue racing. I'm not going to delve into it, but I just want to say a big thank you to them guys, and they put in on such good leagues as well, and I'm glad that I'm in this one and taking part with the guys on the grid. So big shout out to them, and obviously I will give you a big shout out, Paul, because you're always a legend, an absolute legend. So looking forward to watching this back tonight. I'm not working tomorrow, so I'm going to be up with a few beers watching this. So big thanks anyway to everyone there involved, and I really look forward to next week. Can't wait.
Well, we can't wait to see how you get on next week, Chris. Thank you for the kind words as always, and we're so glad you've been given the opportunity to be on the grid here. And until next time out, congratulations once again on your double podium, including the win in the sprint, and we'll see you in Germany next time out.
See you next round, Paul. Take it easy, man.
All the best. So hearing there from Chris Daines, our LMDh Gold driver in the privateer Rhino Motorsport machine. And well, what a brilliant way to start off his title defence at the very top of the pack. Albeit not quite able to make it a double win, but right there in his own words, of course, enjoying that battling all the way from start to finish in the feature with Benjamin McCluskey. And if that's the standard all the way through, it is going to be a tiring season, but perhaps one of the best seasons of racing that he'll indeed, many of us will ever get to witness and he'll get to experience. And we'll have to wait and see it. Where at the Hockenheimring, he's able to put it together and dig deep and continue to soldier on as the championship leader. But as we now get ready for our second interview, we come from Chris Daines to Tom Bingham, our GT3 silver driver there. And Bingham having a reasonable run of form today for Performance Link Esports with a second place in class in the sprint and a fourth place in the feature. And as we get ready to bring him into the interview room, just give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be hearing from him. It's going to be interesting to hear his thoughts on being in that mid-pack and also having to deal with all the prototype cars going through in the feature race. But as we do now get ready to bring him on in, he's just getting ready at the moment. It's been a strong start to his championship campaign, there's no question about it, and well, we do wait to have him join us now. And in fact, I believe Mr. Bingham is ready to now join us, and so he comes on in. And well, as he joins us now, Tom, a good way to start off your day and indeed your championship campaign in the GT3 silver class with a second place in class in the sprint and then a fourth place in class in the feature. Battling as well to be on the overall podium in the sprint. You were third place in the overall GT3 podium. Finding your feet in a new league. Does it correspond with your thoughts in terms of how it went today?
Yeah, definitely. I found the pace was okay considering I've only done probably 10 laps at Fuji, so that's something that was half decent at least. And yeah, no, the races went really well. I just could not catch the first two guys in the first race there. They were just way too quick for me, and unfortunately I had a bit of an incident in well, a couple of incidents in the second race, and I just had to work my way back up to get a P4, thankfully.
When coming on to the qualifying session, or just before we do come on to qualifying, your choice of car for this season, the Porsche GT3R. Just take us through why you picked the car, because it's seen as one of those cars which, when you get it right, it absolutely glides through corners like a knife through hot butter. But when you get it wrong, that tail can be very happy to send you the wrong way.
Yeah, definitely. The Porsche takes a certain amount of commitment. You've got to maintain throttle in order to actually get it to do its job. It's not a car you can sort of let off and coast at all. So you've really got to maintain some sort of grip, and be brave is the only way I can describe it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I love the Porsche, and it's always going to be my favorite in the GT3 series.
And then coming on to qualifying, we saw in the qualifying session it looked tough out there with all the GT3 cars out on circuit, but you wasted no time in starting to spit some strong laps. Did you find the lap time that you wanted on the circuit?
Considering the amount of practice I've done, I'd say I was quite happy with the qualifying time. Any other guys that know me from other leagues and stuff, they'll know that my qualifying isn't my strongest suit. But normally I can put in very consistent laps over over an hour-long, 2-hour-long race, and sort of claw the positions back. But I'd obviously love to be on pole, but it just it didn't happen tonight, so it is what it is.
Well, it may not have quite worked out in qualifying the way you exactly wanted it to, but if we turn things around and whatnot with regards to the performance that came into race number one, a few instants ahead of you going into turn number one on the opening corners, but at the same time as well, making ground and really finding your feet, and then gradually making your way up into the top three overall in the GT3 class and battling for the win in your class towards the end.
Yeah, I got very lucky in the sprint race. Actually, I managed to have the inside line and gained, I think, 2 positions into turn one, and then with the cold tires. I mean, I know Chris was mentioning about the tire model, and it certainly is affecting the GT3s a lot as well. I mean, it really does take a good 2 laps before the car becomes stable. So I think quite a few people were struggling with that. And due to the bit of practice we'd done earlier, I knew to just sort of take it steady and save the tyres a bit and let them warm up properly before I could start attacking and try and go for the win.
And when you started to go on the offensive versus Ryan Walker, we saw you chasing after Lamborghini driver lap after lap, but he just seemed to have a slight edge over you in the last couple laps. Were the tyres starting to go, or do you think, I'm just going to back off and focus on taking that P2?
Yeah, the tyres were toast. I'd like to say they weren't, but yeah, the front tyres were totally gone. I had a few moments where I understeered so badly that it caught me out, and I did go off track at one point. So, but the Lambo is it's really strong. It has good turning. It rotates nicely when you downshift, and he just had better tyre management than I did, and I think I just overdrove it, and unfortunately he started to sort of slip away from me at the end.
Well, it might have slipped away from you in the sprint, but in the features, we're watching back some of your racing at the moment on the broadcast stream. We can see you definitely had a very dramatic start to the race, having to pick your way around a good number of instants, but made a lot of ground early, and then it went a little bit wrong.
Yeah, I unfortunately caught the curb coming out of turn 3, I believe. And unfortunately, the back end just sort of rotated, and then I didn't want to do the cardinal sin of just pulling onto the middle of the track and ruining the race for other people. So I had to suck it up and let everybody else by, and just sort of bide my time and recollect myself and try and put some laps in, and just sort of think about trying to do qualifying laps as opposed to overdriving it again like I did in the sprint race, and the tires going off. And luckily they did hang on a lot better than the sprint race. So it's it's all a learning experience.
Oh, indeed. Every lap turns, you learn a little bit more about yourself as a driver, and also the car at your fingertips and the tips of your toes. And, well, never giving in, of course, means that some opportunities came on through and gradually rose to the order to P4. But along the way, we saw a strategy, and we saw you decide to come in. You are the earliest drivers to take your pit stop in the GT3 class. Did you think about the undercut just to give yourself that breathing room on track?
I wish I had. Unfortunately, I had a collision with a driver that had spun in front of me. As I came around the one corner, they were stationary on the brakes. I went on the inside line, and then they decided to drive ahead. So I don't know if they didn't see the relative, or, I mean, we've all done it. And unfortunately, I had nowhere to go. Hit the side of them. I lost quite a lot of top speed, and I was losing sort of 1.4 seconds a lap. So I just thought, as soon as I can get in and pit and get tyres without too much penalty, I'll try and get in as fast as possible. So an undercut would have been lovely, but but not this time.
Well, that's unfortunate, but I'm sure there'll be plenty more opportunities. But in the end, bringing home a very successful recovery to P4. And now looking ahead, of course, to the Hockenheimring in a week's time in Germany. How are you feeling for the circuit that should play, theoretically, a little bit more to the Porsche's strengths with regards to cornering?
Yeah, definitely. The Porsche will be strong there, even on the new tyre model. So it's a track that I know quite well, and I do enjoy quite a lot. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Hopefully, the Porsche will stick to the ground properly, and we can fight for the win next time.
Well, it'll be fantastic to see. And that on that point of sticking to the ground, I must just point out we did catch you doing a little bit of aerobatics at the end of the sprint with regards to the yellow curb on the exit of the final corner. That must have been a bit of a scary moment, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, I knew it was coming, and I thought, I'm just going to try and hit it straight, and hopefully it doesn't spin the car out. So it wasn't quite as severe as the sausage curves at Silverstone, but yeah, no, it was. I didn't realise I was going to be looking at the sky so quickly, and then looking back at the track. But the Porsche held on. She's made it tough stuff. So I didn't die, luckily.
Oh dear, but bringing things back down to earth, just before we do let you go, Tom, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank all the Performance Link guys, all the lads that were watching my stream. I appreciate them, so thank you for watching. The NXTGEN guys for putting the league on, yourself for the awesome commentary, and anybody else that knows me. Oh, and my wife. I've got to thank my wife. If I don't do that, I'll be in trouble. So.
Oh, well, brilliant indeed. Quite the group of individuals behind you, the wife included and whatnot, and we're very grateful for the thank you from yourself to NXTGEN. But with that, Tom, congratulations on the great pair of results, particularly that second place in the sprint, and we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time in Germany.
Yes, Paul, thank you.
All the best. So hearing there from Tom Bingham, the GT3 Silver Class driver from Performance Link Esports, putting in a great run of performances today. But in the sprint, it really worked out and had to look after the car a little bit towards the end. And the car looked after him, of course, after seeing a bit of the skyline. And then in the feature, it wasn't quite the way he wanted it to work out, given the fact that in the run on the opening few laps, an instant or two set him back a degree or two as well. But in return, he had to come into the pit and then try to recover the race as best he could. And for our Performance Link Esports driver, it's all about turning those laps and bringing home some key points. And of course, at the Hockenheimring next time, a circuit that will favour the Porsche to a degree. We're going to look forward to seeing how he can turn it on through the corners, particularly those arena sections, and really deliver the results. But now, as we get ready for our third interview of the day, it'll be our LMP2 driver of Nigel Stock, who we'll be hearing from very shortly. And the Privateer, of course, having a good run of form in the sprint, but falling back a little bit in the feature, but still giving it everything he can, as Nigel Stott knows how to do so. And, well, as we do wait to hear from Nigel Stott very shortly, well, we'll be interested here, of course, running quite a small class, what it's like to run in that group from start to finish, and also really have to be on the ball to hunt down Mark Sykes and also Kevin Stringer. But as we do invite him now to our interview room, and he should be coming along any moment now. And of course, Nigel Stott, no stranger to Next Gen Racing. We've seen him in most of our, if not every one of our series since 2020, if not more, bit longer than that. And in fact, as he joins me now, Nigel, taking on the Fuji circuit today in the LMP2 class. There are only 3 of you out on circuit, but whilst there were 3 of you, you still made it feel like an absolutely packed grid. A second place in the sprint that definitely came with perseverance, and also Kevin Stringer making a huge mistake at the end. And then a third place in the feature, it just didn't quite work out as much as perhaps you wanted it to be.
Hello. Yeah, pretty much. I had like some lag right at when in warm up, like as we were coming round, and then I think someone in the GTs crashed into me when I came back again, and then when I was across the line, I got a meatball flag, so I had to come in on like the second of lap. So that sort of put pay to really getting anything in the second race.
Well, that's really unfortunate, but focusing on some of the more of the positives today, we saw in qualifying, of course, it being quite tight between yourself and your peers in class from start to finish of the session. In fact, out-qualifying Mark Sykes, and the gap between the 3 of you in qualifying with Stringer taking pole, well, it was a gap of 1.5 tenths, while the closest gaps we saw in terms of the top 3 in a given class. Take us through qualifying from your perspective. Do you think there was a bit more out there? Was that the best you could get out the car on the day?
Probably the best I could do. I mean, maybe I could have done a bit more from there, but I mean, it was just so close between the 3 of us that I mean, maybe just one corner you just do a little bit better, and you might be first. But then again, if you make a little mistake in one corner, you could be third. I mean, it was quite mad how close we were together, really. And yeah, it's good. It's good fun though, and I look forward to the rest of the season if it's that close for the rest of the season.
Oh, 100%. I can tell you one thing, if you're looking forward to it from your perspective, we definitely are as spectators. And then going into the sprint races, we're just watching in the background and saw what happened in the feature. We're describing that latency and that knock as well, but being able to rejoin. In the sprint, we saw from the start yourself, Sykes, and also Stringer all very close together, but you played a little bit of a rearward role. Stringer and Sykes seemed to be battling quite hard, and then you were just within arm's reach watching them.
Yeah, well, I think starting second, I tried to take it easy because I thought there was someone spinning in the higher class in front, but then I guess there wasn't because there wasn't anyone. So I took it easy into turn 1, and I took it a bit too easy, and I managed to take the opportunity and get by because I just going into turn 3, you can't really go in side by side, so I had to let him go, and then every time I sort of got close enough to him, either someone from like one of the cars behind that was faster would come up and sort of break me away a bit, or just with it being so technical at sort of the end of the lap, you just never seem to be quite close enough to get the slipstream to get by. So it was always trying. It's always so close, but not quite close enough. But the other 2 seemed to make it. Somehow managed to do it. They battling, so I was hoping that if they battled a bit more, I might be able to get a bit closer. But they never seemed to quite battle enough where I could get close enough.
Well, still, you were there all the way to the end, and when Stringer did make that mistake coming through turn number 10, you were able to capitalise, and that goes to show the perseverance. But one thing I'd also like to ask is, running a couple of seconds off of your rivals at points, and we're seeing this right now in the feature race, that dirty air can't be good for the front end downforce on the car.
No, it's not really. I think that's one of the things when you're sort of that close behind, you can only sort of be that close behind for a few laps, and then I think the front tyres start to go a bit, so you have to sort of back off and try and cool them down a bit and then you sort of catch up again. But it's always sort of trying to work. I mean, it would have been a lot more interesting if I could have done a bit more strategy in second race, because I mean, it would have been interesting if all three of us together we could all sort of do different things, but obviously weren't to be. But let's learn some things for maybe hopefully next time and for the rest of the season. So just gotta see where we can go from here, sort of thing, really.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of where we go from here, next time out we head to Germany for the Hockenheimring circuit. How are you feeling for the circuit that we've seen you turn quite a few laps in a GT3 in the past?
Well, yeah, speaking of that, I wouldn't say it was my favourite track. I wouldn't say it's not my favourite track either. But it doesn't seem to matter what game or whatever simulator I'm on or whatever. I always seem to do really well there. I always seem to be really quick. So hopefully I can do that next week in the LMP2 car and get some try and see how we get on, really, and hopefully maybe one or two more LMPs maybe on the grid as well to make it a bit more interesting, hopefully.
Indeed, we're a class of 5 of you out there. The more, the merrier, but still great racing from yourself, particularly in the sprint. And just before we do let you go, Nigel, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to on the broadcast this evening?
Well, for you, because I mean, they're always doing a great commentary, and NXTGEN for always doing a great series, for Crest Autosport, and especially Alex Everett for doing the livery, and friends and family. Yeah, that's about it. And Mark and Kevin for their wins and that.
Well, Nigel, we do appreciate the gratitude from yourself, and I'm sure everybody you've mentioned does as well. But with that, congratulations on your results today. A difficult feature race, but still a solid sprint race, and we look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time in Germany.
Well, thanks, see you then. Bye.
All the best. So hearing there from Nigel Stott, our LMP2 driver, with a bit of bad luck on his side in the feature race, as we saw there with that latency contact upsetting the rear of the car and leading to him to have to come into the pits early on to take a second pit stop and repair damage, but still kept in it all the way through and never gave up. And I think Nigel Stott really can be one of those drivers who, on a better day in the feature, can shake things up on the strategies. Like he said there, he was hoping that he could have been a bit more inventive with regards to strategies rather than being forced onto that really situational two-stop, and therefore he'll be able to take the fight to Sykes and Stringer, because we do want to see it be a three-way fight, not just a two-way fight. And of course we may have some of our other LMP2 drivers in the class of 5 join us in a week's time. But with that now, ladies and gentlemen, we come on to our final interviewee of the evening. It is the GT3 Gold driver of Jack Barker, who had quite the difficult sprint race compared to what could have been after an early spin set him a long way back, but in the feature he was able to turn things around to a strong degree. And well, as we do get ready to hear from him, it'll be also interesting to hear his perspective on his first league race in his iRacing career, as we just do invite him to the interview room, and he'll be joining us very shortly. We'll get all the thoughts on that and more. But as we are just waiting for him to give us the confirmation, I think, in fact, he may be good to go. So we are going to have him join us now. In fact, as he does join us, Jack, your first league race on iRacing, indeed in your entire iRacing career. You've done league racing on other platforms, but today you were in amongst it with a whole variety of GT3s and also prototype cars, and also running in the highest echelon of the GT3s as well. A daunting day and a difficult start in the sprint, but you turned things around in the feature. How do you feel your day's been as a whole? I think we may be having some technical issues here, ladies and gentlemen, because no audio is coming through apparently from Jack's side. We are just waiting to see if that can be fixed. Apologies for this. We are just looking at resolving some technical issues at the moment. We should be sorted momentarily.
Is this working?
Yep, that's coming through loud and clear.
There we go. Yeah, so definitely a roller coaster of an evening. Not how I would have liked to start with a sprint race. Yeah, I think qualifying was okay. Probably the fastest I've been throughout the build-up. Decent starts, lost lost a couple positions, just being a bit tentative. My first start in a league, going into Fuji turn 1, a big hairpin, always a danger on lap 1. And then it was going okay until the rear end let go going through turn 13. Yeah, not a fun one. Although, probably say that wasn't actually the one that killed the sprint race, because I had an instant later on, which really messed up the car.
Well, it was unfortunate with regards to the way the sprint race went, but let's just dial it back a little bit to qualifying. Of course, choosing a car which is seen as one of those ones which you really need to be on the bubble for in the Audi R8 LMS. What made you choose this car going into the series?
So prior to joining here, I had never actually driven GT3 on iRacing. So during the big maintenance period between Season 4 and Season 1, I was all up and doing testing with all GT3s, and out of that, I came down to either the Audi or the BMW, and I chose the Audi because I thought I'd get bored with BMW, to be frank.
That's fair play. Going for a lively car and a very lively choice with it. And then coming onto your qualifying session, you mentioned that having a strong lap indeed, one of your strongest laps turned in a qualifying session over all your practice at Fuji. Of course, with so many cars out of the circuit as well, all trying to find space, and Fuji being one of those circuits where in cars with even some downforce like a GT3, you do feel a lot of dirty air at a distance and it can compromise your line. Was it easy to find the space you needed to put in a lap out there?
Well, for me at least, I ended up going out pretty early, but I still got. I think I was maybe third on track. But even then, I was thinking to myself, do I pull back a bit to get the car in front a bit more room, or do I stay where I was, which is about half a second? I ended up pulling back to I think somewhere between 1 and 2 seconds, and that seemed to work quite well. Then apart from that, I was just sort of there for the rest of the session. No real movement between the myself and the car in front of me. So it was fairly lucky, I'd say.
Well, have fortune favouring you to find some space. And then going into the sprint, of course, you mentioned about the 2 incidents that cost you dear, and we did see you making amends with Baz Meacham in the Discord chat moments earlier this evening. Of course, the two of you coming together with Meacham giving you a bit of a knock there. Unfortunate, but that's the way it went. But coming on to your feature race in terms of a much more positive time, but of course, started off the race, as we've just seen in the background here on the broadcast, with starting at the very front of the GT3 Gold Class, and really the #1 car in the GT3s into turn #1. Must have been a little bit of an experience, shall we say, or a little bit of a nerve-wracker, given it's the first time you started on pole on iRacing. Oh
yes, well, if I'm going to be honest, I was kind of hoping that I would be classified as non-finishing for the sprint race, and I'd start right at the back, just so I'd have no one to crash and catch. But yeah, it actually went quite well starting at the front. I was able to stay there for a few corners at least before some of the faster guys who'd also had incidents in the sprint race caught up to me, and I think at that point I was fairly content just to let them pass at that point, because I knew that whilst we were in the same class, I'm sort of nearer to the bottom end of the gold class, whereas they were at the top end of the gold class. So I wasn't that robust with defences. I sort of held my own racing line, and if they got round, they got round.
Well, we did see a bit of battling between yourself and what was Ole and Martin at Mjörk, the driver from Slow-Mo, battling for P5 for quite some time. And in the end, whilst you had the legs on the acceleration zones in the Audi, you found a way to just pip you past the post into turn 1.
Yeah. It's a... When you're running side by side down a very long straight, there's always your thought in the mind of, we are going to have a game of chicken for this big braking zone at the end. Who's going to blink first? So, as he was sort of getting, as we getting closer to the end of the straight and he was pulling more and more ahead, I had the idea that the only way I'm going to be able to have a go at defending this is to be a bit early, actually be a bit early on the brakes and to get the cutback out of the hairpin. But that didn't work out.
Well, it was unfortunate, but still, in the end, able to bring on home what was a P5 in class. And on the way, of course, with that mandatory pit stop, just take us through your strategy approach there. You seem to come in around the midpoint of the race alongside a good number of drivers. Was that always the plan, or did you mix things up on the strategy?
Yes, so with me being fairly new to league racing, actually still very new to endurance racing rather than sprint racing. Sort of the concept of fuel saving hasn't really come to me yet, so I was just going full out on the fuel, and that's just when my fuel ran out. Although pit stop could have gone better. I'll explain, because with the amount of fuel that I need to take on, I worked out that I could actually take a full set of tyres and still be fueling when they're on. Except when I pulled into the pit box and I realised that I'd only selected 3 tyres to change. So, yeah, I've lost about 5 or 6 seconds there, frantically telling the pit crew, no, I would not like you to leave 1 tyre alone. Please change it. So that was about this point. I think I lost 2 places in the pit stop period, going from about 5th to 7th. So yeah, it could have been better, but well, I mean, I think it's fair to say that I made my mistake in the pit stop area, whereas quite a few other people made their mistake on the actual track itself. So we all have mistakes. By the end of the race, it probably worked out even between us. So not much I can complain about.
Well, to be fair, a mistake like that, you can always remedy that next time out. And speaking of next time out, we head to Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit. How are you feeling for the much tighter and more technical course?
I think the last time I drove Hockenheim was probably quite a few years ago on Project Cars, probably in some sort of Renault Clio Cup car or something. So yeah, I am actually quite green to quite a lot of these tracks that are on the calendar, but I'm always up for the challenge.
Well, we love to hear that, and we do look forward to you taking on the challenge in a week's time in round number 2. But just before we do let you go, Jack, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
I mean, as all the previous drivers have done, I like to give a shout out to you for covering the series, and also for the for Next Gen guys for posting it, and also all the evaluation rounds where I've been able to go from before entering thinking that I'd be bronze, doing the evaluations thinking I'd be silver, and then find out I'm actually in gold class. Safe to say it's been quite a confidence boost, so big thanks to them. And also thanks to the guys at M4R who kind of started my serious sim racing career back on GT Sports, and then transitioning to GT7 and Assetto Corsa, and now onto iRacing.
That's fantastic to hear, Jack. I'm really glad to hear that the way things have been run at Next Gen Racing has helped boost your confidence in taking to the grid for this series. But with that, congratulations on your results today, on your debut in your iRacing and League Racing career, and we do look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time at the Hockenheimring.
Thanks, Paul.
All the best. So here and there from Jack Barker in the GT3 Gold class, the privateer having a bit of a mixed start to his season. Indeed, his iRacing career debutant, I should say, but still keeping his head down and making sure not to lose motivation over the course of the race, and that's what it's all about. A reasonable qualifying session, to be fair, and a good start to his race, but then losing out with the spin and a further instant later on. But then again, in the feature race, you would argue that if it weren't for the mistake in the pit lane, could have been finishing a bit higher up, but still recovered to P5 in the featuring class, P20 overall. I think Barker might be one of those drivers that as he really gets his head down and really starts to build up that confidence, and it is growing, you can hear it in his voice there in his interview, I'd argue you can. I think he will be one of those drivers who might be starting to really contest what will not just be top 5 finishes in the GT3 Gold class, but potentially even perhaps a podium or 2 if the time is right, and he's one to watch as the season goes on. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our post-round interviews for today. You've heard from, firstly, the #1 driver of Chris Daines in the LMDh Gold class there, the privateer, and then you secondly heard from Tom Bingham in the GT3 Silver class, the Performance Link Esports. Thirdly, the number 30 driver there, Nigel Stott, the LMP2 privateer, and then last but not least, the number 31 driver, Jack Barkett in the GT3 Gold class, the privateer there. And with that, that brings us to the conclusion of today. And so, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. And if you have enjoyed today and you want to know more about the Next Gen racing community in terms of the series we run, what we stand for, and everything in between, well, you could always go to, firstly, our website, our official website at www.nextgenracing.co.uk. And, well, as our website appears on screen, it is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, where we manage all of our professionally organised sim racing events, championships, and community. And you can see our current leagues and events on the website. Alternatively, you can also see in the top right corner of your screen there on the website, we have all of our socials listed, and you can go to those ranging from Facebook all the way through to Twitter. And if you don't want to go to our website, well, of course, you can go to our Twitter, and our Twitter address, well, it is on Next Gen Racing if you search for Twitter, but also you can go to our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing, where we put all the announcements out with regards to our upcoming series and also events that are going on in the real motorsporting world, which a lot of our guys are involved in. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, our drivers are going to be getting involved in the preparations as they make their way from Japan to Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit, the Hermann Tilke design circuit, for round number 2 on Wednesday, the 25th of January 2023. The dust is settling from Fuji Speedway. We have seen battles aplenty up and down the field, from the LMDHs through to the LMP2s and the GT3s. And there's one thing that's in common: nobody is a clear favourite in class. And will we see some favourites start to emerge in Germany? We'll have to wait and find out as we go from a circuit that was about contrast to a highly technical circuit, where it's all going to be about finding the right place on the circuit at the right time to take position and roll with it. Join us in a week's time for that, but until then, we have been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.